Chapter 194. Who was she? Bound here, she was undoubtedly a prisoner of the Dark Parliament. She was definitely not the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King, because the natural energy aura was not released from her body. Such a beautiful girl was bound here. Perhaps only the people of the Dark Parliament would do such a thing. Filled with pity, Chiyu subconsciously grabbed a dark red chain, exerting force with both arms, trying to break the chain. A soft moan came from the girl's mouth. Evidently, the vibrations of the chains had hurt her. Chiyu raised his head to look at her. At this moment, the girl had already opened her eyes and was looking back at him. The moment their gazes met, Chiyu felt as if his brain had exploded. If Yamu's eyes were clear, without a trace of impurity, then the eyes of the girl in front of him could only be described as full of temptation and extreme. Compared to her, Sosoa's level of charm was simply child's play. This girl's eyes were crystal pink. This was the first time Chiyu saw such eyes. She did not give off a feeling of coquettishness, but a kind of pure crystal. Looking at her eyes, feelings of pity, love, closeness, and so on spontaneously arose. If Yama was said to be an otherworldly fairy that people did not dare to approach, then the girl in front of him was like the world's most attractive magnet, making people uncontrollably want to get close to her, protect her. "Who are you?" the girl asked in pure English, her voice carrying a bit of sadness. That pure voice immediately raised the pity in Chi-Yu's heart to the peak. Taking a deep breath, forcefully suppressing the impulse in his heart, Chi-Yu's eyes regained their clarity. "This isn't the place to talk. You must have been captured by those fellows from the Dark Parliament. I'll save you first. We need to leave this place immediately." After what happened in London, Chi-Yu used his origin of nature ability to barely grasp English through plant. As he spoke, Chi-Yu continued to exert force. However, he was surprised to find that the dark red iron chain made of some unknown material was extremely sturdy. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make it deform in the slightest. Furrowing his brows, Chi-Yu loosened his grip. The young girl looked at him sadly and said, "It's useless. This is a chain made of hell's iron. You can't break it. Unless you have a key. Otherwise, no one can break it." Chi-Yu's eyes flashed coldly. "Is that so? I don't believe in this evil." He took a step back and raised his left hand. The edge of his palm suddenly lit up with a golden light, emitting a metallic luster. This was a special ability that he had comprehended after his battle with Miero. Through Miero's Shura blade ability, he had combined himself with the Xianyuan sword. There was no need to take out the Xianyuan sword and let the sharp energy of the Xianyuan sword merge with his palm. At this moment, his hand was the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword. Although it was slightly inferior to the real Xianyuan sword, it was extremely close to being indestructible. Clang, 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 clang. 4 soft sounds rang out, and in the young girl's surprised cry, the 4 chains had completely broken. Her alluring naked body suddenly fell from the sky. Chi-Yu's shoulders swayed, and he was already under the young girl's body. Immediately, he hugged the soft and fragrant body. There was a sweet fragrance on the young girl's body. Chi-Yu couldn't tell what kind of fragrance it was. It was just like the feeling her appearance gave people. Although this fragrance was full of sweet feeling, it was very pure. Chi-Yu couldn't help but take a few deep breaths. His whole body immediately felt very comfortable, and even the influence of the dark energy on his body was greatly weakened at this moment. The cold and delicate body was very light, and Chi-Yu felt as if he was hugging a non-physical body. The young girl's arms subconsciously wrapped around his neck, and under the close range of her pink eyes, Chi-Yu subconsciously tightened his arms. That rich and comfortable feeling almost made him moan. He thought to himself, if this beautiful woman was placed in ancient times, she would definitely be a super beauty that could charm any king. For some reason, at this moment, he couldn't help but think of several famous beauties in ancient times, such as Baosi, Daji. There was already a swelling pain in his lower body. Chi-Yu was shocked, and he secretly cursed himself for not being able to control himself. The Kirin bead on his chest transmitted a cool stream of air to him, and his somewhat muddled mind suddenly became clear. He hurriedly put the young girl on the ground, took out his big t-shirt from the Kirin bead, and quickly put it on the young girl. However, even if she wore Chi Yu's t-shirt to cover her seductive body, the young girl's attractiveness did not weaken in the slightest. Instead, she looked even more attractive. The young girl let Chi Yu help her put on clothes, and a trace of surprise flashed in the depths of her pink eyes. Chi Yu said, "If possible, I will definitely take you out of here." As he said that, he activated the energy of the Kirin bead, wanting to take the young girl inside. However, to his surprise, no matter how he mobilized the energy, the Kirin bead could not take the young girl in front of him. This was the first time that Chi Yu had encountered such a situation. How could this be? Chi Yu looked at the young girl with a strange look, and the young girl also seemed to look at him blankly. Shaking his head helplessly, Chi Yu's eyes fell on a box in the corner of the room. The box was black, and through the perception of his mental power, Chi Yu found that the box was cast from lead. No wonder the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King's natural aura was so strong, but he could only feel a very weak aura. Turned out that it was bound by the lead box. His right palm swept across, and with a flash of golden light, the lead box had been cut open by the sharp Xianyuan sword. The moment the box was opened, the entire room was filled with an intoxicating fragrance. The most peculiar thing was, that fragrance actually gave people a cold feeling. A huge golden snow lotus appeared in front of Chi Yu's eyes. The stamen in the center of the snow lotus was snow white like jade. A black energy barrier enveloped the snow lotus, suppressing the energy it emitted, but it could not stop the fragrance it released. The Xianyuan sword flashed again. As expected of a domain killer, the black energy barrier under the sweep of the golden light from the Xianyuan sword was immediately smashed to pieces. Chi Yu's control of energy was extremely exquisite, whether it was destroying the lead box or the dark domain. He did not harm the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King in the box. A drop of dark green liquid shot out from the tip of Chi Yu's finger and landed on the stamen of the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King. Floating above the stamen of the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King, the pure energy of nature was immediately absorbed by the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King. The cold aura suddenly became stronger, and with a low groan, a milky white light suddenly lit up, forming a mist in the air, gradually condensing into a human figure. A handsome middle-aged man appeared in front of Chi Yu. His dignified and handsome face was filled with surprise, looking at Chi Yu and the girl beside him. His eyes revealed a strong sense of gratitude and excitement. "Source of nature, are you the source of nature?" The Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King did not have any doubts about Chi Yu, because the source of nature could not be fake. As the king of plants, he could clearly feel that Chi Yu's body was filled with a sense of familiarity. Chi Yu nodded and said, "Hello, Senior, I am here to save you. You should know Snow Girl." The Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King's body trembled. He cried out, What did you say? Is Snow Girl still alive?" Milky white tears flowed uncontrollably. His handsome face had lost its majesty, shrouded in a sorrowful aura. His body was already trembling. Chi Yu hurriedly said, "Senior, don't be sad. The sin of the Dark Council. Sooner or later they will pay it back. Snow Girl is still alive, let's leave here first. I'll have to trouble you." The Kirin pearl lit up. Fortunately, the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King did not cause any trouble for the girl. He was successfully absorbed into the Kirin pearl by Chi Yu. Find the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King. Chi Yu couldn't help but feel relieved. The purpose of this trip has been achieved. Now it is how to leave here, if possible. He certainly hopes to teach the Dark Council a painful lesson. However, the most difficult thing for him now is the girl beside him. This strange girl can't be absorbed into the Kirin pearl. How can he take her out of here? Abandoning a beautiful girl to leave alone, this is definitely not Chi Yu. "Girl, can you tell me who you are? How did you end up being imprisoned here by the Dark Council? Chi-Yu asked. The girl's gaze was fixed on him, watching him complete the process of saving the Emperor's heart Snow Lotus King. Lowering her head, she said in a sorrowful voice, "My name is Ling Er. I don't remember anything from the past. I don't even know how I came to be here. I beg you, save me from here, please? I beg of you." Seeing her pitiful appearance, Chi-Yu couldn't help but sigh, bitterly smiling. "I don't know if I can save you from here, I can only do my best." The girl smiled. Immediately the temperature in the room seemed to rise because of her pure smile. "You can definitely do it, you can even cut through the iron chains of hell. I believe you can definitely save me from here." Chi-Yu turned his head away. He really did not dare to meet the girl's gaze. Even with his mental fortitude, he was unable to withstand such a strong temptation. "Then let's go, no matter what, you must stay by my side, don't go too far away. Sorry for the offense." As he said that, he reached out to grab the girl's waist, floating up into the air. Although they were separated by a t-shirt, the soft and supple feeling of the girl's waist constantly challenged Chi-Yu's willpower. Fortunately, at this time he discovered another ability of the Kirin Pearl, and that was to stabilize the mind. With the constant flow of cold air coming from the Kirin Pearl, Chi-Yu was able to maintain a clear state of mind. When they returned to the entrance of the tunnel, Chi-Yu discovered that it had already been sealed. He exerted strength in his arms in an attempt to push the statue away, but the same situation occurred once again. A pure and enormous amount of darkness energy once again jolted his palms away. Anger rose in Chi-Yu's heart. He was about to use the Xianyuan sword or the Kirin arm to forcefully break through this obstacle, but a purple hexagram lit up, and the statue moved horizontally. He didn't notice that when he used force to move the statue, a faint purple light shot out from Ling Er's finger. When the two of them arrived at the hall above, Chi-Yu found that he still couldn't use his invisibility ability. It seemed like he could only wait until they got out of here. He could only hope that his invisibility ability would be restored when they got out. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to leave this place safely with Ling Er. After all, he had to take care of Ling Er's safety. Tightening his grip on Ling Er's hand, Chi-Yu smiled and asked, "Are you afraid?" Ling Er's gaze was originally on the statue with 4 pairs of black wings, but when she heard his question, she couldn't help but turn her head, smiled gently, and said, "I'm not afraid, I feel very safe by your side." In the face of such a beautiful woman, a strong desire to protect her filled his whole body. "As long as I am alive, I will definitely not let you come to harm." Ling Er was really too beautiful, otherwise Chi-Yu wouldn't have said such words, especially that inexplicably strong attraction. Even in a situation where his mind wasn't affected, Chi-Yu was still full of good feelings towards this girl. Floating forward, Chi-Yu brought Ling Er to the arched door. He didn't rush to go out, but instead put his ear to the arched door, trying to use his spiritual force to explore everything outside. However, he was soon disappointed. He didn't know whether it was because the building itself had the energy to block out the sound outside, or because the situation in Hell City was too special, but all he could feel was silence, a deathly silence. "I can't wait any longer, otherwise it will only become more and more disadvantageous. Sooner or later, the Dark Parliament will send people here to see Ling Er and the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King. At that time it will be even more difficult to escape. Moreover, in this place that was full of dark energy, his energy was greatly suppressed, and the longer he delayed, the more his energy would weaken." Thinking of this, Chi-Yu took a deep breath, completely calmed his mind, and raised his senses to the peak. The energy of Kirin's origin in his body completely fused with the Xianyuan sword and Kirin's concealment, and the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper boundary technique was quietly activated, enveloping his and Ling Er's bodies. Although he couldn't use the concealment ability, at the moment they only looked like a dark red ball of light, and their true appearance couldn't be seen clearly. The door opened, and Chi-Yu flashed out as fast as he could. He still clearly remembered the dark corner he had found in the inner city, so as soon as he flashed out, he immediately rushed there, and at the same time, he activated the concealment effect of the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper boundary technique. However, as soon as Chi Yu floated out of the building, his follow-up movements immediately stopped. This was because there was no need for anything else. Hundreds of black warriors surrounded the building, holding heavy swords in both hands. Among them were red crystal black warriors, green crystal black warriors, and yellow crystal black warriors, whose auras were even more powerful than theirs. Although there were only 2 yellow crystal black warriors, they gave Chi Yu an unusually oppressive feeling. It wasn't just the powerful formation of the black warriors. In the air, there were 3 clouds of black mist floating quietly. Within these black mist, there was a faint red light and there was a faint green light. It was like a huge black curtain, completely sealing off the sky. Sucking in a breath of cold air, Chi Yu's heart sank to the bottom. When he had rescued the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King, he had felt that everything was easy, and even the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King was not guarded by any strong experts. However, everything in front of him made him feel that he was lucky completely disappear. He was still unable to use his invisibility skills, and even his instantaneous movement could only be used within the 1,000 opportunities and ever-changing 4 stars boundary technique. A low and gloomy voice rang out. "Welcome to the city of hell." 2 figures slowly appeared. One was a 5-meter-tall black warrior, and the other was a black warrior. It was a ball of blue mist. Within the blue weapon, a humanoid figure gradually appeared, although it was only the upper body. But he could finally see his face. Unlike his aged voice, he looked like he was only in his 30s. His cold eyes exuded an awe-inspiring aura. There was an imprint of a pair of demonic wings on his forehead, and his long blue hair draped over his back. He held a bone staff in his hand, and it was unknown what kind of creature's bone it was made of. The bone staff was actually almost transparent red. There were 6 balls of dark red willow, the wisps revolving slowly around the tip of the bone staff. At the top of the bone staff was a strange sculpture. It seemed to be carved from bones, Chi Yu discovered. The statuette looked familiar. He quickly remembered. Wasn't it the same as the statue he saw in the hall just now? However, the statue on the bone staff only had 3 pairs of wings on its back, and not the 4 pairs of wings on the statue just now. The black warrior next to the blue mist looked very calm. He was tall, and in his hand was a huge sword that was almost as tall as he was. There was a huge black crystal in front of his chest. 2 cold rays of light shot out from behind the helmet and stared at Chi Yu. Chi Yu clearly felt that his aura was completely locked on by this black warrior. That huge pressure and monstrous murderous aura had long blocked all his escape routes. He faintly felt that his invisibility and instantaneous movement skills could not be used, to a large extent, because of the huge murderous aura that had locked on to his body. In the face of such a powerful lineup, Chi Yu was not nervous. He smiled and said, "Hello, if my guess is right, you are the respected president of the Dark World. I didn't expect that I would be personally received by you. It is a great honor." The Dark World president glanced at Ling Er in Chi Yu's arms and said indifferently, "Let go of the woman in your hands and hand over the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King, and I can consider letting you die a quick death." Chi Yu curled his lips and said, "Do you think I'm scared? If you want it, then rely on your own ability. As long as you defeat me, you can do whatever you want with me. I'm afraid you don't have that ability." Dark World President, how about we make a bet? The Dark World President coldly snorted. "What qualifications do you have to negotiate with me?" As he said that, he raised the scepter in his hand. The surrounding black warriors and dark lich suddenly slowly closed in on Chi Yu. An incomparably powerful dark aura oppressed Chi Yu so much that his face couldn't help but change. Just as the Dark World President was about to order an attack, his eyes suddenly froze. He slowly put down the bone staff in his hand and looked at Chi Yu. I'm suddenly very interested in your bet. I hope you can convince me. Chi Yu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was extremely confident in his own strength, he did not have much confidence in bringing Lung Er out of the encirclement of so many dark race experts. Moreover, this was Hell City, a place that restricted his ability to use his power. If necessary, he could only fully display the 1,000 opportunities, 100 changes, and try to escape. Seeing that the Dark World President suddenly stopped and decided to listen to his bet, he knew that he had guessed correctly. Whether it was Lung Er or the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King, both obviously had a very important role to the Dark Parliament. This gave him more bargaining chips. Very simple, Dark World President, I think you also don't want to see the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King destroyed in my hands. Since I was able to make it here with my own strength, then you should be able to imagine that before you kill me, I will definitely be able to kill the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King and Lung Er. At that time, even if you kill me, it will still be a great loss. The chairman of the Darkness Council coldly stared at Chi Yu, but he slowly nodded his head and said, "Not bad, I believe that you have the ability." In fact, his heart was almost bursting with anger. It was not until Chi Yu entered the steeple that he discovered that there was an unprecedented intruder in his Hell City. Moreover, none of the Dark Lich and Dark Warriors guarding the Hell City had discovered his existence. It was only because of his spiritual force passing through the special energy field inside the steeple that Chi Yu had nowhere to hide. The Dark Parliament had lost a lot of face. He absolutely could not allow Chi Yu to leave so easily, otherwise where would the Dark Parliament put their face? If it wasn't for that pink gaze just now, he would have already attacked. But at this moment, he had no choice but to suppress the murderous intent in his heart and negotiate with Chi Yu. Chi Yu said, "In that case, why don't we both give each other a chance? Lung Er and the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King are my stakes. Let's gamble. If I win, you will let us go. If you win, not only will I allow you to do whatever you want with me, but I also guarantee that I will return the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King and Lung Er to you. What do you think?" The Dark Parliament said, "Then how do you want to bet?" Facing this bold young man, he couldn't help but be curious and admire him. After all, this was the first time he had seen a young man who dared to negotiate with him after knowing his identity as the Dark Parliament. In this kind of situation, even if the Pope came in person, he was confident that he could destroy him. Chi Yu spoke with confidence and with a smile. "It's very simple. Let's bet on our strength. 3 matches to determine the winner. You choose 3 people to fight with me. As long as I can win 2 matches. Even if I win the bet, otherwise I lose the bet. However, you have to swear in the name of the Dark Parliament that you will not harm Lung Er during the course of the bet. Do you dare?" The Dark Parliament really suspected that there was a problem with his ears. This young man's courage was really not ordinary. In this kind of situation, he actually proposed such a bet. In addition to being tired of living, he really couldn't think of any other explanation. "You said 3 matches to determine the winner? Then do you have any other requirements?" Chi Yu shook his head and said, "I have no other requirements. In each battle, I only need to rest for half an hour. As for who you send out, I don't care. I'm looking forward to fighting with you as the Dark Parliament." The chairman of the Darkness Council laughed. His sinister laughter made Chi Yu feel extremely uncomfortable. Good, I haven't encountered such a challenge for a long time. Seeing that you can bring me a little joy in my endless life, I can consider leaving your corpse intact, just as you said. However, 3 matches to determine the winner. As long as you win all 3 matches, I will let you go. Also, I guarantee that the Dark Parliament will not pursue you for half a year. Since victory was already in his grasp, he might as well be generous, but this also increased the difficulty of Chi Yu's victory. Chi Yu smiled indifferently and said, "Good, then it's settled." What he was most afraid of now was the other side ganging up on him. Could he really destroy Ling Er and the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King? That was certainly impossible. He had grasped the Dark Parliament's way of thinking that originated from the underworld. Everything was based on his own interests, so he proposed such a condition. It was difficult for the other side to find a reason to refuse. Chi Yu loosened the big hand around Ling Er's waist. The two looked at each other. Ling Er smiled softly and said, "Everything depends on you. I believe you can do it. Let them see your strength." Chi Yu nodded and said to Ling Er, "If I lose, you must not resist, and do not try to save me. Your life is the most important. Find a chance to escape later." Ling Er's voice sounded in Chi Yu's mind. "If you lose, you can use my life again. I think they won't easily make a move." Such a communication method couldn't help but startle Chi Yu. At this time, he faintly felt that Ling Er was not an ordinary woman. The energy in her body was very mysterious, and he couldn't detect its strength, but he was sure that her strength was not too weak. However, at this time, he didn't have time to think too much. Sighing lightly, he said, "Silly girl, do you really think I will use your life in exchange for freedom? If that's the case, I'm not Chi Yu. Don't worry, I will do my best. Everything will be decided by the heavens." After saying this, Chi Yu floated out and came to the center of the field. Ling Er stood in the same place, looking at his tall and imposing body. A trace of confusion flashed in her eyes. Her pink eyes looked even more sparkling. "Aren't you afraid that I'll go back on my word?" The dark speaker looked coldly at Chi Yu. Chi Yu smiled indifferently and said, "That's why I said this is a gamble. I'm betting not only on my own strength, but also on how much you value your promise. If the dignified dark speaker goes back on his word in front of a bet, I'm afraid you won't be able to live for so many years. I'm afraid that you won't be able to live for that long either. You'll also forever stagnate, unable to pursue greater power. What is darkness? What is light? The way I see it, it's just a different manifestation of energy. Must darkness be evil? Must light be righteous? I don't think that's necessarily the case. Therefore, I choose to trust your promise." The dark speaker's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. "No matter where you come from, young man, I'm already starting to like you." Chi Yu smiled freely and said, I'm not from the back mountain. Let's cut the crap and come." Standing with his hands clasped behind his back, Chi Yu slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, the aura he emitted was completely different from before. Standing there, Chi Yu's body gave off the feeling of a towering mountain. No matter how great the pressure before him was, he remained calm and composed. His black eyes flickered with an intense desire to fight. The dark speaker lightly waved the scepter in his hand. "Knowles, fight!" A black mist floated out from the Dark Parliament's experts and stopped 10 meters away from Chi Yu. Under the dark speaker's signal, the others slowly retreated, leaving a large space for the two of them. Chi Yu calmly looked at the dark lich in front of him. This was the first time he had fought against a lich, and the strong confidence in him didn't cause him to feel nervous at all. Circulating the thundercloud force in his body, he pushed away the surrounding dark energy, and his black eyes began to emit a silver light. "Kid, since you rushed to the city of hell to challenge the Dark Parliament's dignity, then let me, Knowles, send you to hell." The black mist parted to the sides, revealing half of a body. He was wearing a black robe, and his face was pale and emaciated. He held a black cane in his hand, and his voice was very ear-piercing. His yellow eyes, which were sunken deep into his eye sockets, revealed a cruel light. Revealing a disdainful smile, Chi Yu walked towards Knowles step by step. His movements weren't fast, just like a normal person walking, but the powerful pressure coming from his body caused Knowles to be startled. Although this dark lich called Knowles wasn't as strong as the dark speaker and the other Dark Parliament members, he was still considered a strong dark lich. Under the pressure of Chi Yu, he suddenly felt a trace of unease. The black mist once again covered his body, and the mist instantly spread out like a countless number of hands, wrapping around Chi Yu's body. Chapter 195. Looking at the black mist in front of him, Chi Yu's silver eyes seemed to be able to pierce through the mist. Even with the barrier of the mist, Knowles couldn't help but be stunned when he saw the silver light in his eyes. His spirit was shaken to a certain degree. At this time, silk-like silver light floated out from Chi Yu's body. Like a silver thread, it didn't block Knowles' attack. Instead, it floated towards the surrounding space. The black mist quickly reached Chi Yu. The corrosive and negative energy made him feel a strong sense of annoyance. A fiery red light suddenly lit up, and a crimson armor suddenly appeared on Chi Yu's body. The ruby-like light suddenly lit up the space around him. A diamond-shaped red scale appeared on his forehead, and the fire energy instantly rose to its peak. The surrounding temperature suddenly rose uncontrollably. The moment the black mist came into contact with the scorching hot air, it let out a shrill scream. As soon as it came into contact, it immediately retreated. The originally tall Chi Yu instantly enveloped Kirin. That fiery red armor made him look like a god of fire. Standing there, his entire body was filled with a fiery passion. Not only did the Dark Assembly members in front of him have a look of surprise, even the Dark Speaker couldn't help but be startled. Ling'er looked at Chi Yu's back and the crimson armor, and her beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. Knowles didn't think that his probing attack would be met with such a strong resistance from the scorching hot air. He suddenly realized that this was no ordinary flame. However, as soon as it came into contact with him, the mist that he had condensed countless strands of sinister dark energy actually burned away. It should be known that the black mist around the Lich's body is the life energy of the Dark Lich. The stronger the black mist is, the stronger they are. On the other hand, if the black mist is destroyed, it will be a huge blow to us. As Knowles retracted his energy in a panic, the silver energy that Chi Yu released earlier had already enveloped the two of them like a large net. Under the gaze of the Dark Assembly, the black mist around Knowles' body melted like snow, revealing his skinny body covered in a black robe. Chi Yu clasped his hands together, and his injured bones let out a series of cracking sounds. There was an evil glint in his eyes. In a flash, he appeared in front of Knowles. Knowles' arrogance from before was completely gone. The sudden disappearance of his energy shocked the Lich. Seeing that Chi Yu was about to pounce on him, he could only hurriedly release a wave of spiritual energy to try and stop him. However, he was facing Kirin, whose spiritual energy was based on the power of nature. Before Chi Yu could attack, Knowles already let out a scream of pain. Under the feedback of Chi Yu's spiritual energy, he hugged his head with both hands, and his skinny body trembled. With a flash of cold light, Chi Yu mercilessly struck out with his right palm. His palm landed on the top of Knowles' head. The deep, dark red flames engulfed the skinny body in an instant. When the flames were extinguished, not a single trace of Knowles was left. Under the high temperature of Kirin's true fire, he had been completely purified. Silence, absolute silence. Not to mention the members of the Dark Council, even Chi Yu himself had not expected the outcome of the battle to be like this. He had almost wasted no energy, and he had easily taken care of a Dark Lich. This was something he did not expect. However, in this short battle with Knowles, he was pleasantly surprised to find that, to a certain extent, he seemed to have a certain restraining effect on those with dark energy, and the source of this restraining effect was Kirin's true fire. Through the battle, Chi Yu discovered a new characteristic of Kirin Red, and that was its ability to destroy evil. When he summoned Kirin Red, he could clearly feel that the dark energy around him could no longer affect him. That was why he boldly allowed Knowles' black fog to invade his body. Indeed, the black fog had no effect on Kirin Red, and Kirin's true fire seemed to be the Dark Lich's nemesis. In the short battle just now, he used his silver dragon shield to restrain his opponent's energy, and then used Kirin's true fire to attack, and he easily ended the battle. Chi Yu vaguely understood that his Kirin's true fire was probably similar to the Vatican's holy power. The Vatican's holy power was a highly condensed form of fire energy, with a holy aura. In terms of fire energy, although his Kirin's true fire might not be stronger than the holy power, it was definitely not weak either. With this understanding of Kirin's true fire, Chi Yu immediately felt reassured. He retracted his silver dragon shield and said calmly, "Next." Only in battle could he better understand his own abilities. Every time he fought, Chi Yu would have a deeper understanding. As his energy continued to increase, the effect of the silver dragon shield also became more and more tyrannical. Unless the opponent's energy was far beyond the silver dragon shield's range, as long as the opponent was within the silver dragon shield's range, then all energy attacks would immediately lose their effect. This was also the reason why the black fog around Noel's body disappeared. The chairman of the Darkness Council revealed a solemn glint in his eyes. He clearly did not expect Chi Yu to be so difficult to deal with, especially that dark red flame. It seemed as though Chi Yu did not even have the chance to resist. He knew that today's battle would not be as easy as he had imagined. What he was most worried about was not the Kirin's true fire, but the silver dragon shield. He watched as the silver dragon shield instantly caused Noel's energy to disappear. One must know that the Dark Lich itself was a powerful energy body. It could no longer be proven with a physical body, especially a powerful Dark Lich. Therefore, looking at the effect of the silver dragon shield, the Dark Speaker made a decision in his heart. This kind of domain that could threaten him must not exist in this world. His eyes flashed, and he gave the tall figure beside him a look. The Dark Warrior Emperor strode towards Chi Yu step by step. He was 5 meters tall. His entire body was covered in heavy armor, and he had a super heavy sword that was almost as tall as him. The invisible pressure suddenly became much stronger than the previous Noel's. If the Dark Lich's pressure was invisible, then the Dark Valiant Emperor's pressure was real. With his body and the super heavy sword, the pressure was real. Just the range of the attack alone was already extremely terrifying. At this time, Chi Yu also understood why the Dark Parliament's main force was the Dark Warriors and the Dark Lich. Of these two dark creatures, one was a powerful physical attack, while the other was a powerful energy attack. Only by cooperating with each other could they display the strongest combat power. Facing the strongest of the Dark Warriors, he did not dare to be careless. His eyes stared at the Dark Warrior Emperor, and the energy in his body was raised to its peak state. He directly entered the first stage of origin mutation. Kirin Red suddenly expanded under the effect of the Kirin armor. However, because Chi Yu had first used the Qilin Scarlet, it was impossible to see the changes in his body from the outside, concealing the effects of his energy usage. The Kirin True Fire was completely contained. With his rich combat experience, he would not waste any energy on showing off. Kirin Red not only had an extremely strong defense, at the same time, it could also increase the effect of the Thundercloud Force by more than 30%. Coupled with its ability to destroy evil, it was definitely the best choice for Chi Yu at this time. The 4 types of Thundercloud Force in his body, including the energy of Kirin origin, were gradually transformed into the Thundercloud Force under the effect of the natural source. At this time, he was like a fire Kirin. Back in the ancient Behemoth era, Chi Yu had received guidance from Ink Fire. In terms of the application of the Thundercloud Force, he was definitely not inferior to the Fire Kirin. The Dark Warrior Emperor dragged the heavy sword with its right hand, leaving a deep mark on the ground. With every step it took, the ground trembled. The energy aura emitted from behind the helmet told Chi Yu that its attack was about to begin. Just like Chi Yu before the attack, its body did not release any energy aura, so Chi Yu could not see through it. Roar! A low roar that was clearly not a human's could be heard. The next moment, the Dark Warrior Emperor in front of Chi Yu disappeared, and the destructive heavy sword reached Chi Yu's head in an instant. It was a perfect combination of speed and power. No one would have imagined that the 5-meter-tall dark valiant emperor could be so fast if they hadn't seen it for themselves. There was no chance to dodge. When the dark warrior emperor's heavy sword arrived above his head, the only thing Chi Yu could do was to raise his left arm to meet it. Black and silver light instantly condensed outside the Kirin mirror, and at the same time, the surging fire thundercloud force on the Kirin mirror forcibly crossed over Chi Yu's head. The half-meter diameter Kirin mirror let out a shrill cry, and sparks burst from the friction. There was a loud bang under Chi Yu's feet, and the whole ground collapsed in an instant. With his position as the center, a 10-meter radius exploded at the same time. Chi Yu's body was completely blasted into the ground by the extremely violent attack of the Dark Warrior Emperor. The surging energy forced the surrounding experts of the Covenant of Darkness to retreat a little further. The huge body of the Dark Warrior Emperor stood next to the deep pit, holding the huge sword with both hands. The blade was completely cut into the pit. At this moment, almost all of the experts of the Covenant of Darkness thought that the battle was over. They were very clear about the tyrannical attack power of the Dark Warrior Emperor. The heavy sword, which weighed a ton and was made of special materials, contained a huge amount of dark energy. It was one of the strongest magic treasures of the Covenant of Darkness. Perhaps no one would be able to withstand a slash from the Dark Warrior Emperor's infernal sword. At least, this was what they knew. The gaze of the Dark Warrior Emperor clearly became sharp, and the brown light was fixed on the pit. He wasn't as relaxed as the experts of the Covenant of Darkness because he knew that the battle wasn't over yet. That's right, it wasn't over yet. Just as the experts of the Covenant of Darkness began to relax, surging flames soared into the sky from the deep pit in the ground. A huge phantom appeared out of nowhere. It was a Qilin, a scarlet Qilin. Although the members of the Stygian Parliament couldn't possibly recognize this ancient mythological beast, the fire Qilin's silhouette still gave them a sense of fear. As the fire Qilin's silhouette appeared in the air, the dark valiant emperor's huge sword was lifted bit by bit. Chi Yu's figure gradually emerged from the huge pit. Kirin's red eyes shone with a blazing light. At the same time, he held the Kirin mirror with both hands and used his strength to lift the Dark Warrior Emperor's infernal sword bit by bit. Chi Yu's eyes flickered with a dazzling silver light. His body also seemed to expand a little, reaching a height of nearly 3 meters. Although his burly figure was far from the size of the Dark Warrior Emperor, at this moment, it was obvious that he was on par with the Dark Warrior Emperor. The gaze of the Dark Warrior Emperor gradually became ferocious, but his body that was full of strength still couldn't stop Chi Yu from gradually straightening his body from the pit. Suddenly, the huge pressure on Chi Yu disappeared, and so did the body of the Dark Warrior Emperor. The Kirin mirror in Chi Yu's hands had already been raised because he used too much strength. At this moment, a black lightning in the sky, driven by the huge body of the Dark Warrior Emperor, slashed towards him again. It turned out that when the Dark Warrior Emperor saw that he couldn't suppress Chi Yu, he suddenly jumped up and swung the infernal sword at Chi Yu again. This time, Chi Yu seemed to be in an even more dangerous situation. The attack of the Dark Warrior Emperor was too strong. With gravity and the tyrannical power of the infernal sword, coupled with the huge strength of the Dark Warrior Emperor, this sword was much heavier than the previous one. The experts of the Covenant of Darkness, including the chairman of the Covenant of Darkness, all had bloodthirsty eyes. They were all waiting to see how Chi Yu's body would turn into minced meat under the attack of the Dark Warrior Emperor. The result seemed to be decided. Only Ling'er, who was hiding in a corner, looked at Chi Yu and said, "Is this really all your strength is?" Chi Yu smiled slightly, and a strong cold light flashed in his eyes. Was he really so easy to defeat? If that was the case, then he wouldn't be the king of the Zodiac. Because of the sudden loss of pressure, the Kirin mirror, which he had been holding up with both hands, suddenly lifted up. He used too much force and used it in the air. For an ordinary person, this would definitely cause some damage, but for the experienced Chi Yu, this kind of situation would not occur. Using the Kirin mirror, he borrowed the force in the shortest time possible and somersaulted backwards, completely neutralizing the force of the lift. If the Dark Warrior Emperor's first sword was said to have given Qi Yu a great surprise, the second sword would not have the same effect. He already knew that Qi Yu was extremely fast and had used his psychic power to lock onto his body. How could Qi Yu let the same thing happen to him again? Therefore, when the Dark Warrior Emperor's second sword was about to hit him, Qi Yu's body had already taken advantage of the momentum of the somersault and jumped out in the space of a 10,000th of a second. His speed was so fast that he even left a shadow in the air. With a loud bang, the Dark Warrior Emperor left a deep ravine in the ground. As expected of the king of the Dark Warrior Emperor, when the infernal sword landed on the ground, he had already noticed that Qi Yu had disappeared, so he retracted most of his strength. Qi Yu moved, and the Kirin mirror in his hand had already disappeared. The sword just now seemed to be fine, but the Kirin mirror had suffered a lot of damage. After all, it had been hit directly by the infernal sword. At this moment, Qi Yu's left arm was completely numb. If it wasn't for his Qilin arm's tyrannical strength, it would have been very difficult for him to maintain the Qilin mirror to block the demon sword of hell's attack. The numbness in his left arm did not really affect Qi Yu's attack power. His body had already floated up, and he was using the Kirin mirror. Like a dream, he had already arrived at the side of the Dark Warrior Emperor. Instead of slashing fiercely, the Kirin mirror turned into a 5-meter-long spear that turned into specks of light and shadow, stabbing at various parts of the Dark Warrior Emperor's body. Under the effect of the fire cloud power, every thrust of the spear would cause the air to distort and fire shadows to burst forth. Flames burst out, completely enveloping the Dark Warrior Emperor's body. Because the Dark Warrior Emperor had retracted most of his strength in time, his reaction was not slow. When Qi Yu's sword had just arrived, he had already used the impact of the sword strike to turn his body sideways. Qi Yu had locked on to his aura, and similarly, the Dark Warrior Emperor had locked on to Qi Yu's aura. This battle was destined to be a battle of speed and strength. Not only was the Dark Warrior Emperor fast, but his attacks were also not as crude as they seemed. The exquisite sword light and the huge blade instantly sealed off all of Qi Yu's attack angles. For a moment, deafening clanging sounds could be heard. Both sides did not know how many times they had exchanged blows. Qi Yu's body twisted and turned in the air as he flew away. He did not give the Dark Warrior Emperor a chance to display his strength and physical advantage. The fleeting Qilin roaming allowed his movements to become extremely light. Although the Black Samurai was also extremely fast, he still had a huge body and could not be more nimble than Qi Yu. Under the constant barrage of attacks, the advantage he had at the beginning gradually disappeared. Qi Yu continued to attack, using the thundercloud force to test the Dark Warrior Emperor's energy, and at the same time, he looked for his opponent's weakness. As the battle space gradually lengthened, more and more, he felt that the opponent in front of him was not a living creature, but a fortress. He did not know what the armor on the Dark Warrior Emperor's huge body was made of. Even Kirin Mirror could not break through it. Relying on his speed and agility, Qi Yu had already struck the Dark Valiant Emperor's body more than once. However, the Qilin illusion could only leave a faint white mark on his armor. The Dark Warrior Emperor's reaction was very fast, not giving Qi Yu a chance to really exert his strength. The two of them occasionally clashed a few times. The Dark Warrior Emperor's energy was full of explosive power, and every time they collided, it would bring a great shock to Qi Yu. Obviously, he had not used his full strength yet. It had been a long time since he had encountered such a powerful opponent. The battle with Yama was a contest of their comprehensive strength, but the Dark Warrior Emperor in front of him was a completely different concept. He did not have any comprehensive strength at all. His strong defense could completely block most energy attacks, and physical attacks were his strongest means. How could it be easy to win against his speed and strength? At the same time, what gave Chi-Yu a headache was that the biggest difference between the Dark Warrior Emperor and the ordinary Dark Warrior Emperor was that he could also fly. Therefore, his flying advantage was no longer an advantage. The Dark Warrior Emperor's combat skills were not inferior to his. There were all kinds of strange moves, and there were a few times when he almost cut himself with the infernal demon sword. His movements were very simple and fast, but it was also very effective. After a short observation, Chi-Yu knew that it would not be good for him to continue wasting his energy like this. This was only the second round. If he defeated the Dark Warrior Emperor, he did not know who his opponent would be. He could not wait any longer. Since the Dark Warrior Emperor did not want to use his full strength, he would force him to use it. Thinking of this, Chi-Yu stopped attacking. Instead, he controlled his body to move quickly. The thundercloud force in his body also increased at this time. Finally, he began the second stage of Kirin's origin mutation. A pair of black wings broke out from his back. Kirin Red was indeed worthy of being one of Kirin's octahedron. The black wings were actually covered with a layer of red light. Suddenly, Chi-Yu's aura had a qualitative leap. Whether it was speed or strength, at this moment they were raised to the extreme. In the loud bang, he clashed with the Dark Warrior Emperor. Both of their bodies flew back at the same time, floating about 20 meters above the ground and looking at each other. When Ling'er saw the wings on Chi-Yu's back, she could not help but let out a soft cry, and the strange light in her eyes became even brighter. On the other hand, the President of Darkness revealed a trace of solemnity. He faintly felt that this Easterner who had sneaked into the Dark Parliament's headquarters was not simple. The black shadow of Ink Kirin appeared behind Chi-Yu out of thin air. Kirin's horn was raised high, and Chi-Yu's rapidly expanding right arm was now covered in circles of silver lines. A terrifying aura was constantly emitting. Kirin had already transformed into a long blade in his hand. This was the scene that Chi-Yu had seen on TV. The green dragon crescent blade used by warrior Saint Guan Yu. With the blade in front of him, after the double mutation, he was no longer inferior to the Dark Warrior Emperor in terms of strength. A huge amount of power continued to condense in the blade, and the circles of silver light made his right arm look more and more obvious. The tyrannical energy constantly rotated around his body, and the aura in his body became more and more tyrannical. Looking at the Dark Warrior Emperor, he used both hands to hold the hilt of the long blade, and the layers of flame-like red light continued to rise. The Dark Warrior Emperor did not rely on speed to attack Chi-Yu again. His speed had been seen through by Chi-Yu, and the same attack would not have the same effect as the first time. Holding the infernal demon sword with both hands, the Dark Warrior Emperor's eyes gradually turned from brown to red, and a low roar sounded like thunder. The armor on his body was constantly humming, and the energy in his body was in the process of rapidly increasing. A huge amount of energy, a tyrannical aura, the Dark Warrior Emperor's real attack had begun. Chapter 196. One side of the sword was carved with mountains and rivers, while the other side was carved with the sun, moon, and stars. The buzzing sound came from the sword. At this moment, the sword was Chi-Yu, and Chi-Yu was the sword. The Xianyuan godly sword. The experts of the Dark Parliament who were watching the battle were filled with respect. In their hearts, the dreadful Demon King was a supreme existence. Only the President of the Dark Parliament had a smug look in his eyes as he looked at the black orb in front of him. He knew that this was the devouring domain of the dreadful Demon King. As long as one was trapped in this domain, not only would one's energy be devoured, even one's blood essence and soul would become food for Matavikia. This would provide Matavikia with even more power. The Dark Warrior Emperor used his own body as a foundation to attract the dreadful Demon King from Hell to possess him. This was similar to how the Church could use a special method to summon the Archangel. In terms of power, the three dreadful Demon Kings were even stronger than the Archangel. However, there were only 3 of them. Once they were summoned, they could only summon one dreadful demon king in the future. The amount of energy required to summon was undoubtedly enormous. At the same time, it was also extremely taxing on one's body. At the same time, the duration of the summoning was also limited. This was a disadvantage that both the Dark Parliament and the Church had. However, the dreadful demon kings were undoubtedly extremely powerful existences. The dreadful demon King Matavikia that the Dark Warrior Emperor had summoned was one of them. The president of the Dark Parliament also had the ability to summon. He could summon the dreadful demon King Atmars. The other dreadful demon king, Mario, could be summoned by another elder of the Dark Parliament. It was because of these three dreadful demon kings that the Dark Parliament was able to fight against the Church. The Church had always been able to suppress the Dark Parliament mainly because they had fewer restrictions during the summoning process. They could be summoned under any conditions, but the Dark Parliament could not. Because of the dreadful demon king's strength and greed, they had to pay a huge price every time they summoned. At the same time, the summoning was also limited to the night. Moreover, the conditions required to summon were extremely strict. That was why they could not fight against the Church. In this Hell City, summoning was the only place that was not restricted. Although the consumption was equally huge, it could be summoned instantaneously. It was unknown whether Chi-Yu was lucky or unlucky. He had actually triggered the Dark Valiant Emperor to summon the great demon king Matavikia, which was even scarier than the archangels. Black Light, Matavikia's devoured domain. This time, even the Dark Chairman and Ling'er believed that Chi-Yu was finished. Although Chi-Yu had displayed his strength, he was still up against one of the three Dreadlords, the Dreadlord. In the minds of these dark creatures, no human was on the same level as the Dreadlord. As long as it wasn't an archangel, there was no way anyone could pose a threat to the Dreadlord. Unfortunately, their knowledge was limited to the west. The black ball of light floating in the air gradually began to tremble. Every time it trembled, it would emit a slight buzzing sound. Suddenly, a mournful roar shook the entire city of Hell. The Dark Parliament's eyes widened. He was shocked to discover that the mournful roar belonged to the Dreadlord, Matavikia. Following that, a golden light shot out from the black ball of light, aimed at the purple sun in the sky. Under its sharpness, even the purple sun could not help but tremble. A huge golden figure emerged from the black ball of light. The black ball of light had already turned into a mist and disappeared. Chi-Yu's figure appeared out of thin air. The flames around his body had already disappeared. Kiran's armor was dyed with golden light. That incomparably sharp aura, under the gaze of his eyes that were filled with divine light, was aimed at the Dreadlord not far away. Matavikia looked at Chi-Yu in a daze. His dark purple skin had many small wounds, and purple blood flowed from them. He roared angrily, "No, this can't be real. Impossible. How could my devoured domain be destroyed?" Chi-Yu looked at him coldly. "In this world, nothing is impossible. I don't care if you are a demon king or not. I've seen many strong experts. You are just an ordinary one." He was not boasting. Compared to the bull demon king, the Dreadlord Matavikia in front of him was much weaker. Matavikia's purple eyes were filled with intense hatred. He looked at Chi-Yu, and his aura rose higher and higher. A dark purple ball of light had already appeared in front of his chest. The distorted energy aura brought with it bolts of lightning as it revolved around his body. The Dark Parliament shouted, "Are you crazy? Do you want to destroy this place?" The Dreadlord Matavikia roared, "I don't need you to teach me what to do." The huge amount of energy became stronger and stronger, and the terrifying energy enveloped Chi-Yu's body. Chi-Yu did not move. He quietly looked at the Dreadlord Matavikia. The golden light on his body was becoming stronger and stronger. He smiled calmly and stretched out his right hand. The Xianyuan sword appeared. In that instant, everything in the Hell City seemed to lose its color under the light of the Xianyuan sword. The purple sun in the sky seemed to have lost its luster as well. It emitted a faint divine light. Qi Yu's eyes looked a little lost and a little pitiful. The aura released by the Xianyuan sword caused all the dark energy to not dare to approach his body. It was sharp. That incomparable sharpness came from the sword. At the same time, it was also coming from him. The sword and the man had long since become one. Yes, at this moment, Qi Yu had completely comprehended the true meaning of the first sword of the Xianyuan 8 swords, the unity of man and nature. The man and the sword were inseparable. The man was the sword, and the sword was the man. His gaze had already become blurry, but his aura had become even more powerful. He had finally broken through the bottleneck, and he finally had the ability to use this sword independently. Yes, the king of Kirin had entered the realm of the 7th cloud. Under the pressure of the Dreadlord Matavikia, under the tearing pain of the devouring domain, the bottleneck that had troubled Qi Yu for a long time suddenly broke through without any warning. After entering the 7th cloud, he was no longer an ordinary Kirin. He had entered the process of Kirin's great accomplishment. The Kirin after the 7th cloud was the real Kirin. Not only did his strength double in an instant, but at the same time, it was also the complete integration of Kirin's bloodline. The President of Darkness shouted angrily and raised the scepter in his hand. He raised the scepter in his hand. At the same time, a cloud of dark green mist rose to his side. An old face appeared from the dark green mist. Just like the Dark Chancellor, he also raised his own scepter. The purple sun in the sky shot down 2 beams of light at the same time, landing on their bodies. In the next moment, their bodies also changed rapidly. The mist around their bodies quickly condensed into a solid body, constantly expanding. At the same time, a terrifying aura appeared. The blue mist around the President of Darkness body turned into a red solid body. A huge figure that was 6.5 meters tall floated in the air with 3 pairs of dark red wings flapping behind his back. The dark green mist turned into a green energy condensation. 3 pairs of dark green wings appeared on his back. Yes, the other 2 Dreadlord Matavikia had appeared. It was the President of Darkness, the Dreadlord Matavikia, and the Dreadlord Matavikia, the Dreadlord Matavikia. However, they did not appear to attack Qi Yu. Instead, they summoned the Dreadlord Matavikia. The 2 of them had a tacit understanding and released their energy at the same time. It formed a gigantic red and green light barrier, completely enveloping the area of several hundred meters around Qi Yu and the terrifying Demon King Matavikia. Hell City was the work of the Dark Parliament for countless years. They did not want to see it destroyed in such a situation. The Dreadlord Matavikia and Qi Yu did not care about what was happening outside. They looked at each other, only their opponents in their eyes. The Xianyuan sword. The Xianyuan godly sword, the Eastern super-divine weapon. The Dreadlord Matavikia, one of the 3 Dreadlords. An expert from hell. What kind of terrifying situation would their collision create? No one knew, and no one could imagine it. The conversation between the 2 experts had already begun. Man and sword as one. Inseparable. The power of man and heaven as one was fully displayed after Qi Yu entered the 7th cloud realm. The light of the sun, the moon, the stars, the mountains, and the rivers. The energy of Qi Yu and the Xianyuan sword were constantly fused to the most appropriate degree. The incomparably sharp energy was directed at the Dreadlord Matavikia. The dark purple energy in front of Matavikia's chest had already turned black. At that time, it was like a black hole, surrounded by a circle of bright purple light. The terrifying energy and the constantly flapping wings. The expert from hell had unleashed his energy to the maximum. The Xianyuan sword as one with the heavens. Ignorant creatures of hell die. Qi Yu had already forgotten about the bet. At that moment, there was only his enemy in his eyes. His body disappeared. In midair, the golden sword that suddenly expanded to 10 meters cut through the air. At that moment, There was only vacuum surrounding the sword. Madavika also felt the unstoppable aura of the Xianyuan sword. However, he did not retreat. With a roar, he rushed towards the golden sword. The purple energy in front of his chest drew out a large amount of purple light from his body. The huge energy aura instantly exploded and was completely injected into the purple ball of light. They collided. The strongest offensive divine weapon from the east collided with the strongest attack from the west's underground world in midair. There was no violence, no change in energy. The golden sword flashed past the huge purple body with 6 wings. The transformed chairman of the Dark Parliament and the second representative of the Dark Parliament could clearly see that wherever the golden sword passed, the purple energy was instantly split into 2. The 2 halves stopped around the sword. The silent point was the center point where Chi-Yu and Madavika passed through each other. In the next moment, this point exploded. An energy storm. A huge energy storm surged out in a circular shape. It brought with it the terrifying energy of hell and the incomparably sharp aura of the Xianyuan sword. The purple sun lost its color. A huge amount of energy exploded. In an instant, it filled the barrier that the other 2 dreadlords had released with all their strength. The red and green barrier burned brightly. If it was just the energy of Madavika alone, with the 2 of them working together, they would naturally be able to easily block it. However, within Madavikia's energy, this huge energy storm also contained the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword. Cracks gradually appeared under the release of the energy storm. A single spark could start a prairie fire. In the next moment after the first crack appeared, cracks like a spider web had already covered the entire barrier. The faces of the red and green dreadlords changed at the same time. They were still unable to block that huge amount of energy even with their full strength. Then, when the energy storm rushed out of the barrier, the entire Hell City would be destroyed. At this moment, a pink energy quietly penetrated the spire that belonged to the chairman of the Dark Parliament. In the next moment, a huge figure that was 10 meters tall quietly appeared in midair. His huge body was even completely covered by the purple sun's light. In a trance, the 8 wings on his back could be seen from below. Black energy scattered like the sky, all the cracks were glued together. The energy storm gradually disappeared under the effect of the 3 layers of barrier. The black figure with 8 wings quietly left, as if he had never appeared. The only ones who saw him were the red and green dreadlords. There was a hint of rejoicing in their eyes. The faint divine light gradually dimmed. The dreadlord Madavikia slowly turned around. At this moment, the 6 wings on his back had all changed. 2 of them had completely disappeared, and the remaining 4 wings were only half connected to his body. On his huge body, there was a horrifying hole on the side of his lower abdomen. A large amount of blue blood was continuously spurting out from it. The purplish-blue eyes that were filled with hatred and anger gradually dimmed. His body shrank and crashed to the ground. As a purple light peeled off, the huge figure gradually shrank. The Dark Warrior Emperor squatted on the ground, panting heavily. The infernal sword had become a crutch, and he was barely able to support himself. Black fog constantly spread over his body, but his injuries were not only external, but also internal. The sharp Xianyuan sword energy was still rampaging through his body. The injuries that his body had suffered had brought him infinitely closer to death. The heavy injuries that his body had sustained had brought him infinitely closer to death. The red and green figures landed beside the dark valiant emperor. Fear Demon King Artemis released a black aura that enveloped the dark valiant emperor. 2 points. A red light shot out from his eyes and pierced into the Dark Warrior Emperor's eyes. The Dark Warrior Emperor's body trembled violently. With the help of the great demon king of fear, Artemis, he barely managed to neutralize the attack. The sword chi in his body had finally saved his life. However, it would take more than a day or 2 for him to recover to his peak state. After all, Chi-Yue had brought him the wound was too deep. Compared to the Dark Warrior Emperor, Chi-Yu's situation was much better. He landed on the ground, holding Xuanyuan's divine sword with both hands and stabbing it into the ground in front of him. His body was almost completely leaning on Xuanyuan. On the sword, a trickle of blood continuously flowed from the corner of his mouth. The armor on his body had already completely turned to dust, revealing his naked upper body. Countless tiny scars crisscrossed on his muscles. Fortunately, although the armor on his lower body was also broken, it still covered his important parts. His long black hair had already turned silvery white, and the silver light in his eyes had clearly dimmed. Completely. He had also paid a hefty price to defeat the great demon king of fear. His strong chest constantly rose and fell with his breathing. His silvery white eyes watched everything in front of him. The Kirin pattern on his body had already unknowingly appeared, but the radiance was obviously much dimmer. The light was obviously much dimmer. Only the Xuanyuan sword was still shining, proudly showing that it still had an aura. I think I have also won the second round. So, which of the two of you will give me the last round? Looking at the great demon king of fear Artemis and the great demon king of fear Mario in front of him, Chi Yu did not have the slightest intention of retreating. He was very clear. These guys in front of him would not let him go. His last chance was to eliminate another Dreadlord. Only then would he be able to rely on the previous bet. He had survived the previous bet, but did he still have the ability to fight again? Without the power of the Xuanyuan's 8 swords, how could he defeat the Dreadlord? These were not things that Chi Yu considered. As long as there was a glimmer of opportunity, he would not give up. The Dark Chancellor's incarnation of the great demon king of fear Artemis looked at Chi Yu and nodded. No wonder, you can enter the domain of the city of hell. Your strength has far exceeded my imagination. You come from the east and have the divine power of the east. If you choose to surrender to us now, I can represent hell to forgive you. I will bestow upon you greater power. Chi Yu snorted. If I am in perfect condition, what do you think your chances of winning are? Giving me more power, isn't that just a pipe dream? The great demon king of fear Artemis looked coldly at Chi Yu. His blood-red eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty light. Yes, I am not enough to give you powerful magic. Our revered great demon king of Satan can. He is the ultimate existence, the most powerful existence in the entire world. As long as you are willing to surrender, I think you will definitely get the attention of His Majesty Satan. Respect. With an indifferent smile, Chi Yu said, I come from the east, the beautiful and distant east. As a descendant of Yen and Huang, the blood of Yen and Huang flows in my body. Surrender? There is no such word in my dictionary. Come, there is still one last round of our bet. Either you kill me, or I get rid of you and leave here. Turning his head. Looking at Ling'er, Chi Yu's cold silver eyes revealed a trace of gentleness. I'm sorry, Ling'er. I can no longer protect you. Although I don't know why they will capture you here. I will capture you and bring you here, but I know that you are not an ordinary person. Wait for your friends and clansmen to save you. I have already done everything I can, he said. But at the same time, he used the mind division technique to quietly transmit his voice to Ling'er. Ling'er's complexion changed slightly. Her pink eyes flowed with a strange luster. Her charming face and long pink hair, even at this time, still made Chi Yu feel a sense of fascination. An intoxicating feeling. Rest, you need to rest. Don't fight anymore. I don't want you to take risks for me. You have already proved everything. You are a brave warrior, my brave warrior. Don't continue. You need to rest. You really need to rest. Looking at Ling'er's pink eyes, Chi Yu suddenly realized that the fighting spirit in his heart was slowly melting. Ling'er's gaze was very gentle and charming. An indescribable feeling spread throughout his body. Chi Yu did not know what was wrong with him. However, his hand holding the Xuanyuan sword was no longer as firm as before. Fear Great Demon King Artemis and Terror Great Demon King Mario did not move. They only quietly looked at Chi Yu and Ling'er. An ice-cold little hand touched Chi Yu's face. Just as Chi Yu subconsciously wanted to stop it, a special energy pierced into his brain without warning. There was no pain, nor any feeling of discomfort. His mental energy was instantly cut off, and the special energy enveloped his body. In the next moment, Chi Yu had already let go of the Xianyuan sword. His body slowly fell into Ling'er's embrace. His original appearance disappeared, and he returned to his original state. His silver-white hair became black again, and the corners of his mouth revealed a gentle smile. He had a warm smile on his face as he lay in Ling'er's embrace, looking like he had fallen asleep. Holding Chi Yu in her arms, Ling'er looked at him gently. She stretched out her small hand and caressed the Kirin tattoo on Chi Yu's chest. She said softly, "Do you know? You are the first person who has moved my heart. Man, I never thought that humans could actually make my heart tremble. Don't worry, I will not allow anyone to hurt you. I'll make you my little sweetheart and themey little lover." The dark, valiant emperor sat there cross-legged, still resisting the power of the Xianyuan sword. Seeing Chi Yu fall into Ling'er's embrace, Artemis, Mars and Mario slowly walked to Ling'er's side. If Chi Yu was still conscious, he would definitely be shocked to see the look in the eyes of these two dreadlords. It was actually a look of respect. The two huge figures bowed to Ling'er at the same time. Ling'er snorted indifferently. "You guys are quite capable, huh? You allowed a human like me to invade Hell City without noticing. You even needed me to release the news before you could rush over. Looks like you guys have been too relaxed." Both Artemis Mars and Mario's eyes revealed a trace of panic. Artemis Mars hurriedly said, "Miss, don't be angry. The Dark Lord is too lax. No one has ever been able to break into Hell City before. I'll definitely teach him a lesson later to help you vent your anger." Ling'er suddenly laughed and shook her head. "There's no need to vent your anger. If not for their negligence, I wouldn't have been able to see this human. Pick up his sword, it's an extremely special sword. Its power is even greater than my father's Demon King's sword. Its power is even above my father's Demon King's sword. I'm afraid this kind of divine sword is unique in the East." Artemis Mars's eyes revealed a hint of passion as he reached out to grab the Xianyuan divine sword that was stabbed into the ground. A golden light flashed, and Artemis Mars let out a low roar as he subconsciously took 2 steps back. A wound had already appeared on his palm, from which dark red blood flowed down. The Xianyuan sword was still stabbed into the ground, exuding an arrogant aura. With a flash of light, the golden sword body had already floated up, transforming into a deep golden light in the air. In the blink of an eye, it was already in the blink of an eye, it had already sunk into Chi Yu's forehead. Mario exclaimed in surprise, "Master recognition." Ling'er lowered her head to look at Chi Yu, who was in her embrace, and allowed him to rest on her ample bosom. She smiled and said, "Little lover, just how many more surprises can you bring me?" Artemis Mars asked tentatively, "Miss, how should we deal with this brat? Should we get rid of him? Even Matavikia was no match for him. If he were to be left alive, if we keep him alive, he might become a huge threat to us in the future." Ling'er said indifferently, "Do you think that it's just Matavikia? From him, I can see the light of a strong expert. That's not something you can contend against. One-on-one, even if there's someone who can defeat him in the infernal realm. There are only a few people who can." Artemis Mars was somewhat unconvinced. "Miss, I feel that the reason why this brat is so powerful is mainly because of the power of his sword. Otherwise, Matavikia wouldn't have been so easily injured. Ling'er looked at Artemis with a puzzled look. This famous great demon king of the infernal realm actually subconsciously took a step back, hurriedly lowering his head, not daring to meet Ling'er's gaze. "Artemis, you have an extremely high status in the infernal realm, yet you still don't understand? No matter how powerful a weapon is, it still needs someone to use it. After the divine weapon recognizes its master, it itself is a part of its body. Without enough energy, do you think it can display the true power of a divine weapon? Don't let me hear you say such idiotic words in the future. Just now, when he was talking to me, he used spiritual waves to secretly tell me that he was about to use an extremely powerful attack. At that time, not only would he be able to heavily injure you, but he would also be able to break through the space here and use his last bit of energy to bring me away. He told me to leave as soon as he fainted and not care about him. Artemis' expression changed. No, that's impossible. Miss, you saw it too. Although he defeated Matawikia just now, he used up at least 70% of his strength. Under such circumstances, how could he injure me and Mario again? Lingare's puzzled gaze suddenly became much colder. He's right. In this world, nothing is impossible. Do you think you can defeat Matawikia before you fight him? I can feel that what he said was not empty words. It could very well be the truth. If I'm not wrong, he must have a special ability that can raise his strength to the limit at the last moment, and then explode with great power. Just like the heavenly demon disintegration that our royal family can use. Artemis sucked in a breath of cold air. Miss, if that's the case, then let's quickly destroy him. If this Easterner becomes stronger in the future, I'm afraid it will have a huge impact on our grand plan. Lingare's eyes revealed a strange look. If I didn't see him, and didn't communicate with him before, I would have destroyed him. But now, it's different. As long as he's human, he will have a weakness. Since that's the case, we should grasp his weakness. Instead of killing him, why not use it properly? If we succeed, it will be of great help to our grand plan. Mario hesitated. Miss, is that possible? Artemis tried it just now. This Easterner is very stubborn. Lingare said coldly. I said, as long as he's human, he will have a weakness. And I've already found this Easterner's weakness. You don't have to worry about this matter. I will personally take care of it. I will make him even more useful. Yes, Mississippi, Mario and Artemis said respectfully at the same time. Lingare hugged Chiyu, and with a flash of pink light, she disappeared into thin air. In her beautiful pink eyes, there was a sparkle of wisdom, as if she had decided on something. England, London. Klinsmann sat at the head of the hall with a solemn face, looked at a vampire viscount below, and said in a deep voice, Is what you said true? The vampire viscount said respectfully, Yes, your highness. Our people did find many priests coming out of St. Paul's Cathedral, and they are heading in our direction. Klinsmann's face changed and said, How many people are there in total? What level are they? The vampire Red Guard viscount said, Not many, about 30 people. They are all wearing black priest uniforms, and their heads are covered by cloaks. We can't detect their abilities from their aura, but I'm sure that these people's goal is here. They are in a large carriage, and they are constantly approaching. Your Highness, should we make the first move and gain the upper hand? Klinsmann's eyes revealed a light of thought, and he thought to himself, St. Paul's Cathedral has not been looking for the whereabouts of Dracula Castle for a long time, and they only have a rough idea of its location. But the situation of the castle is special, and St. Paul's Cathedral alone is not enough to make them worry. Those guys from St. Paul's Cathedral are not fools, and they should know very well what will happen if they attack me rashly. Why would they suddenly come? Since they dared to come looking for me, I'm afraid they are already prepared. It's better to be careful. Chapter 197. The black touring car looked very steady. Accompanied by the low roar of the engine, they finally arrived at their destination. The car stopped on the bumpy road. It was no longer possible to drive further in. The car door opened, and a group of more than 30 people got out in a single file and gathered in front of the car. Each of them wore a cloak on their head, concealing their appearance. A faintly discernible holy aura was emitted from the bodies of more than 20 people. Only the 5 people in the lead looked like ordinary people, and there were no energy waves emitted from their bodies. The person in the lead said in a low voice, Is this the place? Yes, this is the place. According to the information we have, the Dracula family's ancient castle should be nearby. All these years, if not for the fear that the Darkness Parliament would take advantage of the chaos to attack our churches in other places, we would have launched a large-scale attack long ago. This time, the Emperor has made up his mind to eliminate the Dracula family from London. All right, then let's start now. As he spoke, the person in the lead walked forward alone. At this moment, a delicate voice rang out. Your Excellency, please don't forget our true purpose this time. It was a petite person who was also shrouded in a cloak. From her voice and figure, it could be seen that she was a young woman. The person in the lead paused for a moment and said, I am very clear about the Pope's order. There is no need for Miss to remind us. We will do our best to do everything that we should do. I hope so. The petite woman retreated back into the crowd. With her average figure, it was very difficult for her to attract attention. The 5 cloaked people, who looked like ordinary people earlier, slowly walked toward the open space in front of them. Among them was the person in the lead who was addressed as the bishop. The 5 of them stood there, and the distance between them was exactly the same, as if they had been measured with a ruler. A faint divine light flashed, and a holy aura surged out. In just an instant, the energy on their bodies underwent a qualitative change. The other cloaked people reacted quickly and immediately surrounded the 5 people. Every 5 people surrounded one cloaked person, so there were exactly 30 of them. Only the woman who spoke earlier stood far away, as if she was waiting to watch a good show. The holy light formed a milky white flame, and with the 5 leaders as the center, a huge amount of energy began to rotate and rise, condensing in the air. As the holy aura became stronger and stronger, the air began to change. Even the sunlight seemed a lot dimmer in front of this milky white light. Light and shadow flickered, and a deep Sanskrit chant gradually sounded. One could vaguely hear the profound meaning of the Holy Bible. Brother, what happened? Su Qing was drawn to the hall by the violent tremors of the castle. She saw Klinsmann standing there with a serious look on his face. His eyes shone with a bloodthirsty light, and he seemed to be furious. Below Klinsmann stood more than 100 masters of the Dracula family, including 6 Grand Duke vampires, 11 marquises, and dozens of earls and viscounts. It could be said that all the power of the Dracula family was gathered here. Hearing Su Qing's voice, Klinsmann's expression softened a little. He turned his head to look at her and Ming Ming, and said in a deep voice, I'm afraid we're in big trouble. The people of the Holy Church suddenly attacked the castle for some reason. Su Qing frowned and said, Didn't they also look for our castle in the past? Which time didn't they return in failure? Brother, you don't have to worry too much. A faint trace of helplessness appeared on Klinsmann's handsome face. Christy, it's different this time. Do you feel it too? Our entire castle is shaking. I don't know if the Supreme Pope has gone crazy. If I'm not wrong, there are actually 5 red-robed archbishops outside. That's the full power of the Holy Church. Ming Ming was shocked. Mr. Klinsmann, didn't you say that the Holy Church has a total of 4 red-robed archbishops? How did it become 5? Klinsmann shook his head and said, I don't know either. What I mean is that there are 5 powerhouses equivalent to the red-robed archbishops outside. Although the Supreme Pope didn't come in person, most of the Holy Church's power has already been gathered outside. It seems that they are determined to destroy the Dracula family this time. I really don't understand why the Holy Church suddenly did this. Ming Ming's heart skipped a beat. She wondered if the Holy Church's sudden action was because of them, or because of Yamu. No one outside knew that Yamu had left. After all, she was taken away by Chi Yu in the Kirin orb. The Holy Church suddenly came without warning. She was afraid that this trouble was caused by them. Although she thought so, she didn't say it out loud. Su Qing said anxiously, Then what should we do now? I'm afraid we can't resist the 5 red-robed archbishop. Klinsmann's expression changed. He said, I've already reported the situation here to the Covenant of Darkness, but they have no intention of helping. Even if they are willing to come, I'm afraid it's too late. At most, they will go and destroy some churches in other parts of the Holy Church. However, based on the current situation, I'm afraid that the Dracula family will suffer heavy losses today. Christy, once the battle starts, immediately leave this place with Miss Ming Ming. Try to find Chi Yu and follow them to the east. Su Qing's body trembled. She had already understood many things from Klinsmann's words. Klinsmann was a person who never gave up and was extremely determined. Although he had turned her into a vampire, ever since then, he had treated her like a real family member. Unknowingly, Su Qing had long regarded him as her own brother. With her familiarity with Klinsmann, she immediately understood that Klinsmann had made up his mind to fight to the death. "Brother, I'm not leaving. If we're leaving, we'll leave together." Su Qing looked at Klinsmann with determination. Klinsmann shook his head and looked at her deeply. "Silly girl, do you want to let the pain of the past befall me again? This time, even if I die, I must protect my only sister. Christy, promise me, no matter what, your life is the most important. Don't worry, even if the Holy Church is strong in all aspects, they will have to pay a heavy price if they want to destroy the Dracula family. This is our territory. The honor of the blood kindred cannot be violated. Everyone in the Dracula family, listen to my command. Once the Holy Church breaks into the castle, we will fight to the death. No one can leave here. Just now, I've already planted my blood kindred virus in the blood I gave you. Since you are far weaker than me, if you choose to surrender or give up your nicknames, you should know very well what the consequences will be." As soon as Klinsmann's words came out, the blood kindred immediately went into an uproar. To the blood kindred was as scary as cancer to ordinary people. Every vampire had a different blood relay virus in their body. In a sense, the blood relay virus was the guarantee to maintain their long lives. However, the blood kindred could also kill them at any time. The relationship between them was extremely mysterious. Until now, the vampires had not been able to completely figure out the secret. However, one thing was for sure. Once a low-level vampire was infected with the blood kindred virus of a high-level vampire, he would definitely die. Unless a high-level vampire took the initiative to remove the virus, there was no chance of survival. The power of the blood kindred to trigger the blood kindred was completely in the hands of the high-level vampire. Under certain circumstances, this was the best way for the blood kindred to control ordinary vampires. After all, it was the most terrifying thing for vampires when their long lives were threatened. Moreover, once the blood kindred virus acted up, the pain would probably be 100 times worse than death. Therefore, there had never been a vampire who did not feel horrified when faced with the blood kindred virus. Klinsmann's actions could be said to be cutting off all means of retreat. Even if he managed to resist the external attack in the end, his position in the blood kindred would be greatly affected. After all, no vampire could tolerate the use of the blood kindred virus. Looking coldly at his subordinates, Klinsmann's eyes became colder and colder. If we fight, there is still a glimmer of hope for survival. Otherwise, there will only be one result. After you think it through, come out with me. As he spoke, he led Ming Ming and Su Qing out of the castle. The 5 beams of holy light jointly released by the 30 experts of the Vatican had already condensed into one in midair. A huge amount of energy was constantly flashing, and every time it flashed, a large area of light would spread to the surroundings. The intense holy energy caused layers of distorted ripples in the surrounding space. Although the instantaneous explosive power and the instantaneous dark chi it brought could not be compared to Chi Yu's thundercloud force, its continuous attack power was much stronger. This time, Klinsmann did not come out. Instead, he allowed the experts of the Vatican to continuously attack the defensive domain of the Dracula castle. Although the domain here was not as powerful as the Hell Realm, it was, after all, a base built by the Dracula family after thousands of years of hard work. Even if the 5 red-robed experts were to charge in, they would first have to pinpoint the exact location of Dracula Castle. Then, they would have to completely destroy the domain. That was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Deep in Klinsmann's heart, there was still a glimmer of hope that the experts of the Covenant of Darkness would arrive in time to resolve the crisis of the Dracula family this time. When Chi-Yu gradually woke up from his coma, he couldn't help but groan from the aching pain all over his body. "What's wrong with me?" The first thought appeared in the depths of his mind. His eyelids were very heavy, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not open them. The energy in his body was constantly producing a feeling of being almost exhausted. This was the first time he had such a feeling since he returned from the era of the ancient behemoth. His memory gradually returned to his brain, and he gradually remembered everything that had happened before. He slowly used his mental strength to activate the remaining trace of thundercloud force in his body, trying to absorb the energy molecules in the air. To his surprise, as soon as the thundercloud force was activated, it immediately absorbed a large amount of natural energy. As soon as this natural energy entered his body, it immediately fused with the source of nature and quickly healed the injuries in his body. The reason why Chi-Yu was able to obtain the final victory in the battle with the terrifying Great Demon King Madoia was, of course, because of the extremely strong attack power of the Xianyuan Society sword. At the same time, it had an inseparable relationship with his own body. After being modified by the source of nature, Chi-Yu's body had become many times stronger than before. Under the attacks of his opponent, the damage he received had been minimized by his body. The strength of his body was even comparable to Madoia's. As long as Madoia did not have a powerful attack weapon like the Xianyuan Society sword, he would naturally not be able to truly hurt Chi-Yu. As the natural energy was no longer filled up, the thundercloud force in Chi-Yu's body gradually became active, and its ability to recover quickly was displayed. With the help of the source of nature, the thundercloud force recovered quickly. The energy in his body continuously produced a slight rhythm, and every time it recovered, it would increase his strength a little. A faint light flickered, and Chi-Yu finally opened his eyes. At this time, the thundercloud force had recovered by 30%. As for how much time had passed, he did not know. When he opened his eyes, he was surprised to find that his body was actually in a forest. "Ah, why am I here?" Chi-Yu looked at his surroundings in shock. This was a real forest, and most of the tall trees were at least 100 years old. No wonder they could provide such a large amount of natural energy. But why was he here? At the last moment of his memory, he seemed to have fainted in Lingaire's arms. Lingaire, where did Lingaire go? Thinking back to Lingaire's pink eyes, Chi-Yu suddenly shivered. He gradually understood the situation at that time. His heart skipped a beat, and his brain worked quickly to sort out his thoughts. It was Lingaire. That's right, his fainting was caused by Lingaire. Chi-Yu was sure that ever since he met Lingaire, his spiritual energy had been affected. That girl called Lingaire seemed to have some kind of strange magic that even his spiritual energy could not resist. When he met her, he should have had some doubts. However, those doubts did not appear, and he even treated her as someone close to him. When he defeated the dreadful demon King Madowikia, he forcefully activated the ultimate Kirin's arm to see if he could kill the remaining 2 dreadful demon kings. He had just finished telling Lingaire his thoughts when he fainted. This was definitely not because the thundercloud force had been used up too much. It was because of Lingaire. At that time, her eyes seemed to have released a special kind of energy, and when his spiritual energy was affected by this energy, he fainted. His heart chilled. Chi-Yu was almost sure that Lingaire was a member of the Dark Parliament. Otherwise, why would she do that? He was such an idiot. How could a normal human have pink eyes? When she appeared at that time, he did not notice it at first, and his spiritual energy was gradually affected by her, which led to the situation afterwards. Thinking of this, Chi Yu's heart was suddenly enlightened, and he gradually understood everything that had happened. However, what he could not understand was that if Ling'er was a member of the Dark Parliament, and she had captured him, why was he in this forest? Through his spiritual energy and the energy of the source of nature, everything in front of him was definitely not an illusion. It was real. He had killed a dark lich, and severely injured a dreadful demon king. If Ling'er was a member of the Dark Parliament, the best outcome would be for her to imprison him, or even kill him. He could not understand, he really could not understand. Slowly standing up from the ground, Chi Yu stretched his body. He felt much more comfortable. With the thundercloud force that had just recovered by 30%, it would not take long for the remaining energy to be completely restored. She should still be in Berlin, Chi Yu thought. He used his spiritual energy to explore the Kirin Pearl, and found that in the Kirin Pearl, not only the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus Queen had fallen into a deep sleep, but also Yamu had fallen into a deep sleep. He tried to use his spiritual energy to wake her up, but he could not. They were still here. It seemed that he had not suffered any harm. In his mind, Ling'er's charming appearance and perfect body appeared. Qi Zhong felt as if there was something else. In the depths of his heart, there seemed to be something that trembled slightly, giving rise to a strange feeling. He shook his head hard. Don't think about it, not dying is not a good thing. Since the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus Queen has been rescued, I should hurry back to London to pick up Ming Ming. How is the legal advisor Klinsmann? I don't know how long I've been in a coma. I should call Ryue and the others first, so that they won't worry. I hope that Ming Ming did not tell them that I risked my life alone. Thinking of this, Chi Yu's eyes revealed a trace of gentleness. Ryue, Wen Ting, and Snow Girl were still waiting for him at home. If Snow Girl knew that he had saved her, who knew how happy she would be? As he thought about it, he excitedly called the Dragon Field courtyard. Hello, who is this? As soon as the phone was connected, Chi Yu asked impatiently. On the other side of the phone was an explosive voice. Who the F***ck are you? Let me hear your name first. Chi Yu frowned. Mo Dan, it's you, right? I'm Chi Yu. Where are Ryue and the others? Let Ryue or Wen Ting answer the phone. Mo Dan said proudly. If you say you want to find them, I'll give them to you. In your dreams, Chi Yu, you bastard. Have you forgotten how you treated me? I, indifferent green shirt, will not forgive you. I won't let them answer the phone. What can you do? Anyway, you are in Europe and can't touch me. Hit me if you can. Ha 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 ha. Listening to Mo Dan's voice, Chi Yu could not help but be slightly angry. Mo Dan, do you know what is important? I called back for serious business. Hurry up and call Ryue. What serious business can you have? Isn't it those lovey-dovey? I didn't know that you are so universal. You got a few of them at once. I have to admire you, but I won't let them answer the phone. You don't have to call again, it's useless. I'll cut off the switchboard later. F***ck Mo Dan, you cow, just you wait. Chi Yu said angrily. Hearing his angry voice, Mo Dan was even more proud. What? You hit me? Okay, come on, I'm waiting for you. Chi Yu took a deep breath, barely calming his inner anger. Mo Dan, listen to me clearly, I don't care what you think of me, but if you delay my business, don't blame me for being rude. Don't you like Vol? Vol is my best brother, think about it yourself. Tell Snow Girl that I've found her father and rescued him. I'm going back to London now, and I'll be there as soon as I can. Listen to me, if the message doesn't get through, I'll make sure you don't even have milk when you get back. In his anger, Chi Yu kept the phone into his Kirin Pearl. This Mo Dan, wait and see how I'll deal with her when I get back. Muttering to himself, Chi Yu couldn't help but laugh helplessly. Mo Dan was still young, and her temper was a little strange. Why should he lower himself to her level? No matter what, she was one of the Zodiac guardian gods. Just as he was thinking, there was a flash of light on the ground. Under the sunlight, There seemed to be something reflecting a ray of light, attracting Chi Yu's attention. Fu Tu looked over and saw that by his feet there was a pink gemstone lying quietly in the grass. The gemstone was the size of a knuckle, and it emitted a faint energy. Looking at the pink light, Chi Yu couldn't help but think of Ling'er's beautiful face again. He subconsciously picked up the gemstone. He inserted his spiritual energy directly into it, and felt the changes in the gemstone's energy. At this moment, Chi Yu felt his vision blur, and his spiritual energy was completely immersed in the gemstone. It was a pink world, a unique domain. It didn't have any offensive or defensive abilities, but it still brought Chi Yu's spiritual energy into this world. Ling'er stood quietly in this spiritual world, looking at Chi Yu, her eyes still revealing that charming smile. Chi Yu, you must be very strange. If I were you, I would also find it strange. This is a domain that belongs to me. I have sealed it in the gemstone, and as long as you use your spiritual energy to enter it, you will be able to hear my voice and see the appearance of metal. Unfortunately, this domain can only be used once, and it will be very difficult for you to see me in the future. This was an image preservation domain. Chi Yu looked at Ling'er in shock. He had heard Mo Hua mention such a domain before. It was a very special type of domain that didn't have any offensive abilities, but it was very magical. It could preserve the user's image and voice through a certain artifact. He didn't expect to see it, and it was in the modern era. Ling'er continued, I know that you must have doubts about my identity. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hide it from you, but now is not the time for you to know my identity. I can only tell you. I don't have any ill intentions towards you, and you are really a good person. Even in such a dangerous situation, you didn't forget to save me. Here, I can only apologize to you for being a cripple. Maybe the next time we meet, you will know who I am. When you were unconscious, I read some of your memories. Unfortunately, your memories are too tightly sealed by your spiritual energy. I only know how you found the Black Shadow Council from your memories. I didn't expect you to know Klinsmann from novels. However, he is in a bad situation now. For some reason, the Vatican suddenly launched an attack on the Dracula family's castle. Although Klinsmann is a member of the Covenant of Darkness, due to some special reasons, the true powerhouses of the Covenant of Darkness can't leave Hell City, so they won't help him. If Klinsmann is really your friend, then you should go quickly. Ling'er will miss you, and I really look forward to our next meeting. Ling'er's graceful and delicate body gradually disappeared in the pink mist, but the red light in her eyes remained in Chi Yu's memory. Even when the image disappeared from the domain and Chi Yu's spiritual energy returned to reality, he still couldn't sense that she had recovered. Not only did Ling'er's explanation not make Chi Yu understand, but it also made him even more confused. What exactly is her identity? From what she said, it seems that she released me. However, if that's the case, then her position in the Covenant of Darkness should at least be similar to that of me, the chairman of the Covenant of Darkness. After all, I'm not friendly to the Covenant of Darkness. She even let me take away the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King. This woman is too scary. Reading memories, this is something that I don't even dare to think about, but she actually did it, although it was only a small part of my memory. Thinking of this, Chi Yu's heart suddenly trembled. Ling'er said that Klinsmann's castle was attacked by the Vatican. What is going on? Why did the Vatican suddenly attack Klinsmann's castle? Is it because of me? No, that's impossible. Even if it's against Klinsmann, it should be the Constellation Guardians in Greece, not the Vatican. However, regardless of whether what Ling'er said was true or not, I have to hurry back. The marketing said that Klinsmann is my friend, and Su Qing and Ming Ming are still there. Thinking of this, Chi Yu no longer pondered. He immediately activated the cloud force in his body and soared into the sky, flying in a certain direction. As long as he could find them, he would naturally have a way to return to London. Boom! A deafening roar came from the dark world of Dracula Castle. The dark realm created by the Dracula family's agricultural bank was on the verge of collapse. Under the constant attacks from the outside world, it could no longer hold on. Klinsmann stood quietly in the castle. Although his expression was calm, his heart had already fallen to the bottom. He knew that no one would come to save the Dracula family. In the dark world, selfishness is the rule. The Covenant should have already given up on him. After all, there are so many experts from the Vatican gathered here. If he was in power, perhaps he would still make the same choice. They are all people from the dark world. Who would be willing to risk being ambushed to save him? Klinsmann laughed to himself. The blood in his eyes shone brightly. Open the dark realm and let them in. Your Highness. A vampire Grand Duke of the Dracula family wanted to stop Klinsmann, but he was suppressed by the cold aura emitted from his body. Under Klinsmann's cold gaze, all the blood kindred above the rank of Viscount of the Dracula family released their energy at the same time. Hundreds of blood-red lights simultaneously merged into the dark sky canopy. The darkness still existed, but the surrounding scenery had changed. A dense forest gradually appeared around the castle. Since the Dracula family's castle was used in the Dark Realm, it had reappeared in the real world for the first time. This was the first time it had reappeared in the real world. It was not located in a special space like Hell City. The ancient castle itself was in the forest, an illusion of the Dark Realm. It had truly appeared in front of the world. Far away, 1,000 meters away, more than 30 experts of the church stopped releasing holy light. Dozens of suns converged in the direction of the Dracula castle. The sun's light was blocked by the dark sky canopy, so the experts of the Dracula family were not affected. The eyes of the experts of the blood kindred had already begun to emit a blood-red light. Although their hearts were still filled with fear, they could only fight in order to survive. The holy light did not dim because of the dark sky canopy. Instead, it shone even brighter in this dark world. Surrounded by the experts of the Vatican, the 5 experts of the Vatican walked forward slowly. They did not seem to be walking fast, but with just a few steps, they were already 100 meters away from the castle. The 5 people in the lead slowly took off the cloak on their heads and looked at Klinsmann. 10 calm gazes gathered together. These 5 people were all above 50 years old. 4 of them had white hair and beard. They took off their cloaks, revealing the dark red archbishop robes inlaid with gold. Klinsmann's guess was right. This time, the red-robed archbishops of the Vatican had come out in full force. The last person wore a silver robe and was much younger than the other 4. However, he exuded a murderous aura, which was different from the other 4. Klinsmann held a crystal cup in his hand and drank a sip of the blood elegantly. The blood kindred under him stood on both sides and watched as the vampire prince walked to the front. Klinsmann performed the standard etiquette of a Western aristocrat. His gestures were large, but the blood in the crystal cup in his hand did not spill out at all. It's a pleasure to receive the presence of so many important figures. I never thought that one day, the ancient castle of the Dracula family would receive your presence. Chapter 198. Klinsmann drank all the blood in the glass in one gulp and threw it down forcefully. The crystal glass reflected countless rays of light, adding some color to the dark world. The holy light of the church was a stark contrast to the Dracula family's ancient body, which was full of dark energy. Klinsmann said coldly, "The Dracula family has existed in this world for more than a day or 2. It's been a year or 2. The conflict with filial piety is not something that can be solved. However, I really want to know what could make the 4 cardinals of the Vatican and the chief judge of the Inquisition come in person. I'm afraid that I, Klinsmann, do not have the charisma to do so." The leading old man said, "Your Highness is a smart man. We have made an exception and gathered in London because we have something to ask of you. The Dracula family has a long history. If your Highness can agree to 2 of our conditions, we can forget about today's matter." Klinsmann's eyes flashed and he said, Then I want to hear what conditions could make you come here? The old man said, "Let me introduce you to your highness. I am Cardinal Paul Gasol of St. Paul's Cathedral. These are Cardinal Novaeschi, Ginobili, and Parker. The last one is the Chief Judge of the Vatican, Yingzatsi. Our two conditions are not difficult for your highness. First, we hope that your highness can lead the Dracula family away from London and give up the Dracula castle. Second, we want your highness to hand over a person. If your highness can fulfill these two conditions, we can leave immediately and pretend that nothing happened." Blood-red solubility gushed out of Klinsmann's body and condensed into a blood-red bat shadow. The edges of the shadow were golden, and the faint golden light seemed to be filled with an evil aura. "As the patriarch of the Dekugu family, if the castle is destroyed in my hands, I will become the greatest sinner of the family. As for handing over the person, I don't understand why all the cardinals would come all the way here." Paul Gasol was not affected by the energy released by Klinsmann. He said calmly, "Not long ago, a woman should have come here. I think that with your highness's intelligence, you should know who I am talking about." Klinsmann was shocked and frowned. "I didn't expect that. Even the Vatican was coveting the $100 million. Since when did the red-robed archbishops become assassins? This is the first time I've heard of it." Before Gasol could open his mouth, Cardinal Nowitzki, who was at the side, became a little impatient. He walked to Gasol's side and said coldly, "Klinsmann, don't think about wasting time. Only you can save yourself now. The Vatican and the underground world had always been enemies, but that woman was extremely important to the Vatican. Hand her over, and we'll let you leave freely. Otherwise, today will be the day the Lord gives birth to you." Klinsmann could not help but smile bitterly. If possible, he was willing to temporarily hand over the person the church wanted and leave this place. Although the ancient castle was important, the survival of the Dekugu family was more important. The experts of the church also understood that if they led their subordinates to escape in different directions at the same time, it would be difficult for them to stop them. However, that person was not in the castle at all. "Oh, Chiyu, you've really brought me a lot of trouble." Su Qing looked at Klinsmann's fluctuating expression, and after exchanging a glance with Ming Ming, she walked to his side and said in a clear voice, "You've come at a bad time. That person left not long ago and did not stay for long. There's no way we can hand her over." Paul drew a cross in front of him. "The Lord will forgive you. All evil will be driven away by the light." The four cardinals stepped forward at the same time, and milky white holy light condensed into a huge light wall in the air. As they stepped forward, a huge pressure pressed down in the direction of the ancient castle. Su Qing was so angry that she wanted to say something, but she was stopped by Klinsmann. "It's useless. Why would these guys believe us? If that's the case, we can only fight today." There was a hint of apology in Ming Ming's eyes. "Klinsmann, I'm sorry. I didn't expect to bring you so much trouble. Chiyu hasn't returned yet. I'm willing to help you fight against the enemy together." Klinsmann sighed. "What's going to come will come. Since Satan has decided to abandon our Lord Dracula, things will still happen even without Chiyu's arrival. Miss Ming Ming, if it comes to the last moment, please take her away from here." After saying this, he strode forward. Blood-red light soared into the sky, and the huge blood bat suddenly raised the oppressive atmosphere on the Dracula castle's side. The experts of the Dracula family followed behind Klinsmann and charged toward the church's side. The battle that concerned the survival of the Dracula family was about to begin. All the Blood Clan members had a bloodthirsty look on their faces. Without needing Klinsmann's order, these experts of the Blood Clan, who had lived together for at least hundreds of years, began to slowly disperse. Only in a larger battlefield could they display their advantage in speed. Pairs of different-colored bat wings emerged from their backs, and the Blood Clan members gradually approached the experts of the church in a three-dimensional formation. A pair of huge blood-red wings emerged from Klinsmann's back. His elegance had been completely replaced by an evil blood-red light. The blood-red light that was filled with a tinge of golden light burst out, fully demonstrating his strength as a blood prince. Although he wasn't the most powerful blood emperor, Klinsmann was confident that he could at least hold off a red-robed archbishop. However, he could only hold off a red-robed archbishop. It had been a long time since he had fought with the strongest experts of the church. Since the outcome was already decided, he let go of everything and was filled with the desire to fight. The chief judge Inzaghi floated out. His movements were as light as an ape's, and in a flash, he was already in front of the church. "Leave Klinsmann to me. I'll leave the rest of the blood clan to the archbishops." Although he was the highest chief judge in the Inquisition, there was still a gap between his position and that of the red-robed archbishop, so his tone was very polite. A silver-white holy sword burned in Inzaghi's hand, and the sharp and holy energy pressed toward Klinsmann without showing any weakness. Klinsmann's eyes were full of evil, and there was no light of life in his blood-red eyes. With a low roar, all the vampires rushed toward the experts of the church. The Dracula family was the largest and oldest family among the vampires. Although they were facing the 4 red-robed bishops who were far more powerful than them, they did not panic at the beginning of the battle. They seemed to be charging forward, but each of them released a blood-red light and immediately rose into the sky. The evil energy in the sky was like a large net, covering the experts of the church below. This was the Dracula castle, and it had a strong effect on the blood clan's energy. The 4 red-robed bishops were very powerful. Perhaps they would not be affected by the evil energy here, but it was hard to say for the other experts of the church. The 4 red-robed bishops looked at each other, and Novaisky said in a deep voice, "All members of the church, get into formation." The 20 or so experts of the church immediately formed a circle and surrounded the 4 red-robed archbishops in the center. Holy light was ignited from their bodies and formed a giant milky white light shield. Other than the judge Inzaghi, all the members of the church were enveloped in it. The blood-red light immediately disappeared as soon as it came into contact with the milky white light shield. It was completely purified. The 4 red-robed bishops were chanting something. Their voices were very deep, but the tone was very strange. It did not belong to any of the modern languages, and it was very difficult to understand. However, this didn't affect the performance of the rest. Under the full power of the powerhouses of the church, the thick holy light was like an iron wall. No matter which angle the vampires attacked from, they couldn't hurt the people of the church within the holy light. The 4 red-robed bishops took a defensive position as soon as they came up, but Klinsmann and the chief judge, Inzaghi, had already begun to attack. Unlike the red-robed bishops who mainly cultivated holy light and their own holy energy, the inquisitors cultivated all kinds of powerful physical skills and martial arts. Klinsmann's speed was indeed very fast, but Inzaghi was not slow at all. The chief judge, who looked to be in his 50s, had extremely powerful holy power. This holy power was not cultivated. Every true powerhouse of the Vatican had inherited a portion of the holy power from the previous generation's powerhouses, along with their own hard work and cultivation. Otherwise, the people of the church were all ordinary people. How could their strength compete with the covenant of darkness? The inheritance of this holy power could be said to be the top secret in the church. In the loud bang, Klinsmann had already collided with Inzaghi. He was shocked to find that the holy sword in Inzaghi's hand was not energy, but a physical object formed by highly compressed energy. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. However, despite his shock, Klinsmann's attack did not stop at all. The holy sword in Inzaghi's hand maintained the simplest attack method. Every time he swung it, a silver cross-shaped light would appear and envelop Klinsmann's body. Klinsmann's speed was too fast, and he also had the ability to teleport. This made it difficult for Inzaghi's attack to track his body. The two of them collided when Klinsmann attacked Inzaghi. Although Inzaghi could not teleport, His reaction was undoubtedly extremely fast. He could use the holy sword to block Klinsmann's attack under different circumstances. Klinsmann was shocked, but Inzaghi was even more surprised. According to the records of the church, vampires were actually just a dark creature race that was subordinate to the Covenant of Darkness. Although they were widely known in the world, their true strength was not taken seriously by the church. However, this time, Klinsmann brought Inzaghi a great surprise. His strength had reached the level of a blood prince. At the very least, he brought a lot of trouble to Inzaghi. His attacks were full of evil aura, and his erratic teleportation ability put the presiding judge at a complete disadvantage. The battle continued. Klinsmann attacked with all his might while paying attention to the situation on the battlefield. It was better than he had expected. At least for now, the 4 red-robed archbishops had not attacked with all their strength. They were only steadily defending that area, preventing the vampires from really causing them any real damage. Ming Ming and Su Qing had also arrived on the battlefield. A loud cry came from Ming Ming's mouth. When her body changed, both the vampires flying in the air and the experts of the church hidden in the holy light couldn't help but be stunned. The first thing that appeared was a circle of colorful light. It was like a rainbow. The first thing that appeared was a rainbow-like ring of light. The faint light floated up and revolved around Ming Ming's body. Following that, the rainbow-colored light gradually separated, forming pieces of rainbow-colored light. When the rainbow-colored light gradually became clear, everyone realized that it was actually rainbow-colored feathers. The feathers were like snowflakes that constantly revolved around Ming Ming's body. The rainbow-colored feathers gradually condensed, and when the dazzling light disappeared, Ming Ming's delicate body was perfectly presented in front of everyone. The rainbow-colored feathers had become her best armor, and her entire body was covered in feathers. Her arms had already turned into huge wings, and a snow-white feather stood up behind her head. Another loud cry rang out, and the surging energy released from Ming Ming's body caused everyone present to be shocked. Ming Ming flew up. No, to be more accurate, she jumped up. She spread her arms to the sides and glided toward the holy light with the help of the 2 giant colorful wings. The powerhouses of the Holy See clearly did not expect such a variable to appear. The 4 red-robed archbishops who came this time could be said to be the most powerful beings in the Holy See other than the Pope. They could clearly feel that the energy aura released from Ming Ming's body did not belong to a vampire, and there was no sense of evil. Although it couldn't be said to be holy, a righteous aura was released from Ming Ming's body. The huge energy was completely contained, as if the colorful feathers were full of energy. What is this? She looks like a beautiful rainbow bird. But, does such a bird exist in this world? The 4 cardinals were puzzled at the same time. At this moment, a voice rang in their ears. This is the Zodiac Guardian Warrior from the East. She is the Zodiac Rooster. Our target this time is brought along by another Zodiac Guardian Warrior. After listening to the voice's explanation, the 4 cardinals understood a little. The loud cry from Ming Ming didn't affect them at all. Noveski let out a low grunt, and a golden scepter appeared in his hand. As he pointed the scepter forward, a holy light was suddenly released from the milky white light shield and shrouded Ming Ming's body. The main reason why the Vatican had chosen this method of attack was to reduce their losses. The 4 red-robed archbishops also knew that although they were far stronger than the Deku family in terms of overall strength, their true advantage lay in the 4 red-robed archbishops and the presiding judge, Inzaghi. Ordinary experts of the church weren't much stronger than these vampires. Therefore, in order to avoid losses, they set up the Holy Light spiritual formation with the 4 red-robed archbishops as the core, not to mention the vampires outside. Even if the 3 dreadful demon kings came together, they might not be able to break it. Under the premise of a stable defense, they used the powerful Holy Light to attack the surrounding vampires. Although this would consume a lot of energy, at least their losses would be much smaller, and they wouldn't be surrounded by the surrounding vampires. Seeing a ray of holy light with a diameter of more than 1 meter shrouding her, a rainbow-like light flashed in Ming Ming's eyes. Her arms and huge wings suddenly folded in front of her, and her charging body instantly stopped. 2 rainbow-like blade-like rays of light crisscrossed in front of her, meeting the attack of the holy light spiritual formation. Screech! An ear-piercing grinding sound rang out. The milky white holy light was actually split into 2 by the rainbow-colored rays of light from Ming Ming's wings, passing by both sides of Ming Ming's body. Meanwhile, Ming Ming's delicate body leaned to the side, passing through the holy light spiritual formation. This situation instantly shocked the hearts of the 4 cardinals at the same time. Nowitzki was very clear of how powerful his attack was. It was the purest holy light, containing a huge amount of high-purity holy energy. For the opponent to be able to split it into 2 was simply unbelievable. Actually, Ming Ming's attack just now was thanks to the Capricorn constellation guardian, Miero. Ever since the battle between Chi Yu and Miero, he carefully studied Miero's Azura blade. Not only did he apply it to his own ability, he also taught it to Ming Ming. With Chi Yu's exquisite control of energy, not only did he perfect the Hell Azura blade, he also combined it with Ming Ming's own situation. As a chicken Zodiac warrior, one of Ming Ming's strongest attacks was the Iron Wings technique. Applying the Azura blade technique to the Iron Wings technique was like adding wings to a tiger for Ming Ming. At this moment, Ming Ming's strength had already reached the 6 clouds level. When she was with Chi Yu, no one felt that she was very powerful. However, when she truly displayed her strength, everyone knew that this little girl's strength was not the slightest bit inferior to Klinsmann's. The rainbow-colored rays of light once again emitted from the rainbow-colored wings. This time, the target was the holy light spiritual formation. Ever since Ming Ming's Iron Wings art had been upgraded to the Azura Iron Wings art realm, this was the first time she had truly displayed it. Previously, when she had split open the holy light, it had greatly boosted her confidence. She knew that if she wanted to win today's battle, then she had to first get rid of those old fellows dressed in red. As the saying goes, the newborn cow is not afraid of tigers. She did not feel any fear just because the other party was a cardinal. Like a cicada's wings, the 2 Azura Iron Wings condensed with a huge thundercloud force slashed at the holy light spiritual formation at lightning speed. An ear-piercing grinding sound rang out, and Ming Ming cried out in alarm. In the instant her Azura Iron Wings technique cut into the holy light spiritual array, she could clearly feel an enormous and irresistible energy rushing towards her from all directions. That scorching and holy aura produced a huge rebounding force, and although her Azura Iron Wings technique was sharp enough, under the huge force of this all-encompassing attack, her delicate body was still flung into the air, drifting through the air. Ming Yu's sudden attack had alerted the red-robed archbishops. Their holy light spiritual formation had been completed, and the 4 red-robed archbishops had become the main attackers in the formation. The other experts of the Vatican released their powerful energy auras to sustain the energy consumption of the holy light spiritual formation. As for the 4 red-robed archbishops, they raised the golden scepters in their hands. In an instant, dozens of beams of light shot out from the holy light spiritual formation and enveloped the surrounding vampires. The vampires' reactions were extremely fast. Not only did they have the advantage of speed, but they also had the ultrasonic waves they inherited from Bat. They did not even need to use their eyes to sense the approaching danger. In an instant, the experts of the Dracula family immediately flew higher into the sky, quickly dodging the holy light spiritual formation that was emitted from the holy light spiritual formation. The attacks of the cardinals continued, but all of their attacks missed. Not a single ray of holy light was able to hit the vampires. After about 5 minutes of attacking, the vampires flying in the air felt relieved. They all felt that these legendary powerhouses of the Vatican seemed to be nothing much and did not have any real abilities. So what if their energy was a little stronger? Their attacks were like a mosquito shooting cannons, and they could not cause any harm to the other party at all. Thinking of this, the fear in their hearts gradually disappeared. The experts of the Dracula family even began to quietly approach the Holy Light spiritual formation, looking for an opportunity to launch another attack. A few Grand Dukes, who were trying to curry favor with Klinsmann, quietly approached Klinsmann and Inzaghi. They were prepared to launch a sneak attack on Inzaghi and give him a hard time. Just when the vampires thought that this battle was no longer scary, a sudden change occurred. In midair, the originally dark sky suddenly lit up. The curtain of darkness that had been shrouding the Dracula family all along shattered without warning. The high-level vampires were slightly better off, but the dozens of vampires below the marquee level screamed at the same time under the illumination of the sunlight. They were barely able to release their sanguine light to protect their bodies, but their combat strength was greatly reduced. Immediately, dozens of holy light beams shot out from the holy light spirit array. The vampires, whose bodies had paused for a moment, were immediately purified by the holy light. The holy light emitted by the Arch-Cardinal did not leave a single strand of hair for the sanguine. The blood race themselves were stupid enough to treat the cardinals as fools. At this moment, they were horrified to discover that not only had the curtain of darkness in the sky been destroyed by the massive holy light, but a huge net formed by holy light was also slowly descending from the sky. At the same time, a huge net made of holy light was slowly descending from the sky. The semicircular net of light had blocked all possible escape route. Perhaps only a child could pass through the air attack between the net of light. The four cardinals had expended so much energy to condense such a powerful holy light net. Their goal was obvious. They were not going to let any vampires go. They were going to kill them all here. Not only did the sunlight affect the ordinary vampires, but even Klinsmann's speed was suppressed to a certain extent. Just as the momentum of his crazy attacks weakened a little, Inzaghi immediately seized the opportunity and dragged the battle into a stalemate. Inzaghi's massive holy light was constantly affecting Klinsmann's state. The two of them had clashed several times in a row. Blood was already flowing from the corners of their mouth. Ming Ming was stunned by the scene in front of her. Only now did she completely believe Yamu's description of the Vatican. The cardinals were indeed extremely powerful existences. What should she do now? The trouble could be said to have been caused by Chiyu, and she was his woman. Since he wasn't here, this responsibility should be borne by her. Thinking of this, Ming Ming's gaze became abnormally resolute. She leaped up and floated in the air. She shouted, "All blood race, follow me." As she spoke, her delicate body that was flying in the air spread out her arms to both sides of her body, and something strange happened again. The rainbow light suddenly lit up. Clearly visible energy elements surged toward Ming Ming's body. With Qi Yu's source of nature's transformation and the guidance he gave to Ming Ming in her cultivation, she had already broken through the Six Clouds realm. What was happening to her now was the second stage of the Chicken Zodiac warrior's origin mutation. Flying in the air, Ming Ming's petite body brought with it a rainbow. The dazzling rainbow looked very alluring. Ming Ming's petite body had obviously expanded a little. Those colorful feathers had an additional layer of metallic light. The head's long feather had already turned silver. Countless rainbow-like feathers revolved around Ming Ming's petite body, forming a huge vortex of feathers. Within this huge vortex, Ming Ming's energy was rapidly increasing. The petite body disappeared. A huge bird appeared in the air out of nowhere. It was a huge bird like a peacock. However, compared to a peacock, the light it emitted was much more dazzling. Its body was more than 8 meters long, and its wingspan was also more than 8 meters. Its huge body soared in the air. The huge energy brought with it an incomparably sharp aura. It drew a beautiful rainbow light in the air and rushed toward the light net in the air. The four red-clothed archbishops were stunned by the scene in front of them. They even forgot to continue launching their holy light attack. Ming Ming, who was flying in the air, became the focus of everyone present. Every feather on her body released a gem-like light. That surging divine light, that beautiful appearance. The huge bird body had already rushed in front of the holy light net in the blink of an eye. Just like how Ryue could use the divine dragon true body after reaching the six-cloud state, what Ming Ming was using now was the strongest ability of her current level. It was called Phoenix Chick Transformation. At the moment, she still couldn't truly advance from the chicken realm to the phoenix realm. However, after breaking through to the six-cloud level, she already possessed the aura of a phoenix. Combined with the second stage of nature mutation, she completed the strongest ability of the chicken warrior after the six-cloud level for the first time. That huge rainbow bird was the predecessor of a phoenix. The rainbow bird's body stopped 10 meters away from the holy light net. The fearful vampires had no other choice. Under Su Qing's lead, they followed behind Ming Ming. The huge rainbow wings spread open and suddenly closed in the middle. 2 rainbow blades of light that were 3 meters wide floated out. The huge blades of light spun and sliced intensely, directly pouncing towards the net of light in front of them. An ear-piercing grinding sound rang out. Countless specks of light exploded in the air. The energy fluctuations caused the heavens and earth to change color. The originally seamless holy light net was forcibly cut open by the Phoenix Chick transformation by Ming Ming. An irreparable gap instantly appeared in the enormous destructive energy. Ming Ming didn't rush out from the gap. The noble rainbow bird turned around and dove down from the sky. Rays of rainbow light shot out from her huge wings. The milky white holy light released by the 4 red-cloaked archbishops were cut in half by the azura iron wings. No, it should be called Phoenix Chick /. Ming Ming relied on her own strength to complete the mission of covering the retreat of the Dracula family vampires. The 4 red-cloaked archbishops had never seen such a situation before. Although vampires could also transform and grow wings, compared to the rainbow bird in front of them, the transformation of vampires was far inferior. If they weren't enemies, the 4 red-cloaked archbishops who believed in God might have thought that the noble rainbow bird was a divine bird sent by the heavens. The 4 of them went silent at the same time. They didn't launch any more holy light attacks. Their leader, Paulo Gasol, nodded and said, "Such an opponent is worthy of us using our true strength. Novitsky, I'll have to trouble you." Novitsky nodded and placed the scepter in his hand horizontally. He took a few steps back and arrived at the center of the holy light spiritual formation. A high-pitched chant immediately came out of his mouth. The other 3 red-cloaked archbishops stood guard for him. The enormous energy aura was completely withdrawn. Immediately after, a powerful golden light shot into the sky and brought Novitsky's body out of the holy light spiritual formation. In the blink of an eye, he was wrapped in the holy light and condensed into a golden ball of light in the air. Chapter 199. Once upon a time, they still drooled over Ming Ming's beauty, but they only treated her as an ordinary human beauty to serve. However, just now, it was this human beauty who had suddenly transformed into the rainbow bird in front of them and pulled them back from the brink of death. This magical scene was destined to be forever engraved in the Dracula family's memory, and no one could erase it. The faint divine light continued to grow stronger. Ming Ming floated in the air, but she did not continue to attack. After all, the opponent's holy light did not last long. Looking at the holy light that looked like a golden egg hundreds of meters away, she felt a little uneasy. Originally, with Ming Ming's strength, she would not have been able to maintain the Phoenix's transformation for a long time. However, after Qi Yu helped her transform her body with the energy of the origin of nature, the situation changed. The transformation of the origin of nature not only changed the quality of her meridians, but it could also compress energy better. This way, the compressed energy would not only be smaller in volume, but it could also last longer in battle. More importantly, after the transformation, Ming Ming's energy recovery speed was much faster than before. Therefore, she could better support the Phoenix's state. An intense golden light suddenly erupted. Cracks could even be seen on the edges of the golden light. A long roar came from within the golden light, and a tall figure floated out. It was a handsome man who looked to be in his 20s. His long golden hair draped over his back, and his blue eyes seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. There was not the slightest bit of impurity in them. His snow-white skin-tight clothes outlined his perfect figure. 6 pure white wings flapped gently on his back, and his 3-meter-tall body was full of a holy aura. His elegant and noble temperament could easily captivate girls. Seeing his appearance, Ming Ming could not help but feel her heart tighten. She recalled what Yumo had said. She knew that this man with 6 wings in front of her was probably an archangel. She was afraid that he was an archangel. "Hello, esteemed lady, I'm very happy to meet you. The pure aura on your body intoxicates me. I'm a 6-winged seraph, and also an archangel in heaven. You can call me Fei. My friends call me Guang Yantian, because I have the most handsome face in the world." The angel of light, Ming Ming, spread her phoenix wings and looked at him quietly. "What does your appearance have to do with me? If you're really a messenger sent by the heavens, then you shouldn't be killing the innocent." Raphael's gaze swept over the vampires. All the vampires couldn't help but tremble subconsciously when they met his gaze. The holy aura intensified the fear in their hearts. "No, honorable lady, these people are not innocent. They believe in the power of darkness, and their souls have already fallen. They must be purified in order to be reborn. I'm willing to help them purify themselves and give them a chance to turn over a new leaf. Isn't that good?" Ming Ming looked at Raphael coldly and said, "Since that's the case, then let's fight. If you want to hurt them, you'll have to step over my dead body first." Raphael's handsome face revealed a trace of dissatisfaction. "Esteemed lady, your aura doesn't make me want to fight you. I can feel that you don't belong here. Why do you want to go against the heavens for these lowly creatures? This won't do you any good. Why don't we become friends? I really admire your temperament." Even the experts of the Vatican were dumbfounded. None of them had expected that the angel of light, Raphael, who had used his own body as a foundation, would actually say such a thing. All of them couldn't help but reveal expressions that they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This archangel seemed a little too naive. Ming Ming gently flapped her wings. "Let's fight. We won't have any common language. I'm from the East. You can call me the Zodiac Guardian God Warrior." Raphael's expression changed. "You're from the East? Are you the subordinate of that Dongfang Shindi? This is going to be troublesome. Should I fight or not? Lady, you're really putting me in a difficult position. We don't want to have a conflict with the East. However, as you can see, there are so many dark creatures here. If I don't fight, I'm afraid that the Emperor Heaven will punish me when I return. Why don't we both take a step back? You leave, and I return to heaven? This way, I'll be able to account for myself." Looking at Raphael's sincere expression, Ming Ming suddenly thought of a person. It was Tang Seng from the Journey to the West. This guy was obviously very powerful, but he didn't have any killing intent. This made Ming Ming have a good impression of him. Just because you don't fight doesn't mean that the people of the Vatican won't. I'm sorry, but I appreciate your kindness. Let's fight. Raphael looked at Ming Ming and sighed. Why do you have to do this? If that's the case, I promise I won't take your life. After all, you're such a beautiful lady. You're the best work of heaven. His words made the other 3 red-robed archbishops feel embarrassed. This was a big loss of face, especially since Raphael was from the East. Ming Ming said impatiently, Are you done? Are you a love-struck fool? She suddenly closed her wings, and 2 phoenix fledgling slashes flew towards Raphael's body. Raphael's seemingly gentle eyes suddenly became sharp. He crossed his arms in front of his chest, and a golden light exploded horizontally. It was like a horizontal barrier, and it met the 2 rainbow lights. A slight collision came from the point of contact between the 2 different colors. The huge rainbow bird's body shook slightly, and it let out a loud cry. The colorful light disappeared, and the remaining golden light also disappeared with this loud and clear chirp. Raphael smiled. Good, it's actually a sound wave attack. It's my honor to meet an opponent like you. He directly pounced towards Raphael. The golden longsword condensed in Raphael's hand. Similarly, a golden 10 peaceful slash was unleashed from his hands. He didn't know how much stronger Inzaghi was. The golden light shone towards Ming Ming. The 6 wings on Raphael's back straightened at the same time, and a faint golden light condensed towards his body from the air. His eyes also turned golden. Raphael, the angel of light, wasn't particularly strong among the 6 archangels in heaven. He was only ranked second to last, but he was still a 6-winged seraph. Even if he was slightly weaker than the Dreadlord of Hell, he wasn't that much weaker. The cross light slash was filled with holy energy. This time, Ming Ming was at a disadvantage. It was still the Phoenix fledgling slash, and the energy was completely condensed into its sharpness. It looked like a large area of light slashes, but the real attack power was only in a single line. The rest of the light was just an afterimage. There was a rumble. The fledgling Phoenix slash disappeared. Raphael's golden cross light slash was also successfully cut through. But this time, the condensed energy didn't disperse. Instead, it turned into rays of golden light and chased after Ming Ming. Ming Ming let out an ear-piercing cry, and the light slashes slowed down under the impact of the sound waves. Ming Ming spread her wings, and streaks of fledgling Phoenix slash flew through the air, cutting the light slashes into smaller light spots. But what surprised her was that although the cross light slash was cut, the attack power was still there. This situation caused Ming Ming to panic. After all, her combat experience was much worse than Chi Yu's. She had no choice but to spread her wings and retreat. She didn't use fledgling Phoenix slash anymore, and a large area of rainbow energy condensed into a light screen, blocking the golden light attack. With a concentrated explosion, Raphael's attack was finally dispelled. However, the rainbow bird that Ming Ming had transformed into was already 500 meters away. Her chest was heaving up and down. Blocking Raphael's attack had consumed a large amount of her energy. Raphael smiled and said, "Beautiful lady, I have to admit that you're very strong, much stronger than I imagined. However, you're no match for the blazing angel. Admit defeat, I don't want to hurt you. Your linear attack just now was enough to surprise me, but my cross light slash can break through it bit by bit. Although it looks like a cross light slash, it's actually made up of countless connected energy spots. Your attack won't have any effect on me." Although this guy in front of her was very long-winded, Ming Ming had to admit that he was very strong. He wasn't someone she could fight against. However, could she admit defeat? If she did, then no one from the Dracula family, including Su Qing, would be able to leave this place alive. She had brought the troublesome Chi Yu along with her. As the guardian of the East and the daughter of a general, Ming Ming would never back down in the face of danger even though she was a girl. "That's right, I admit that you're stronger than me. However, you can only hurt others if you step over my dead body." The rainbow bird's huge body flew up again. This time, there was no young Phoenix slash. Instead, countless rainbow-colored feathers floated out and formed a huge dragon fist. The fist revolved around Ming Ming's delicate body and flew towards Raphael. As they fought, Klinsmann was already in a difficult situation. In terms of strength, as a blood prince, he was still slightly inferior to Inzaghi. Moreover, the sunlight in the sky affected him to a certain extent. At this time, in the face of Inzaghi's increasingly powerful attacks, he could only rely on teleportation to dodge most of the time instead of fighting back. More and more poisonous blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The loss of blood, the source of a vampire's energy, had already doomed him to failure. Paul Gasol said in a deep voice within the Holy Light Spirit formation, "It's time to end everything. Let me join hands to destroy the rest of the vampires, and then find out the whereabouts of that woman from Klinsmann. The other 2 cardinals nodded at the same time. The 3 of them raised their golden scepters, and a huge amount of holy light began to condense. Klinsmann was still fighting bitterly. Ming Ming was also entangled by Raphael, the angel of Xiao Yan. Although Raphael didn't want to hurt Ming Ming, Ming Ming's strength was much weaker than his. It was impossible for her to break free from his entanglement. Feeling the rising holy energy within the holy light spirit formation, all the vampires felt the aura of death. Su Qing shouted, "We are noble vampires. Do you want to wait for death? All vampires, listen to my command. Gather all your power. Let us stake it all on this. Even if we die, we will die in battle." With Su Qing's reminder, the vampires remembered that they still had the strength to resist. They wanted to escape from the depths of their hearts. But they also knew that if they ran now, once the blood inheritance virus broke out, it would be many times more miserable than dying below the Saint Plain. If they were truly destined to die, then death would no longer be scary. The eyes of the dukes, marquises, and earls once again burned with a blood-red radiance. With Su Qing in the lead, the enormous blood-red energy converged into a long river, like a blood-red sun, preparing to carry out the final desperate throw. Paul Gasol, Ginobili, and Parker, the 3 cardinals, had calm expressions. In their eyes, these vampires were just the final struggle before death. How could these dark creatures resist the holy aura of the 3 of them? The intense holy light continued to expand. The milky white light looked very pure. The energy of the 3 cardinals condensed into one point and shot out from the holy light spirit formation at the same time. A huge amount of energy exploded at this moment. The radiance shone brightly, and the 3 beams of holy light condensed into one in the air. The milky white light turned into a gold color, streaked across the sky, and shot towards the vampires. Su Qing screamed. She had always been a stubborn girl, and she would never give in. It was just like how she had impulsively framed Shiyu in the past. For her own survival, for everything she hoped for, even if it was the last chance, she would fight to the end. All of the blood-colored energy that had been condensed suddenly shot out under her command. In terms of volume, the energy that had been condensed by so many vampires was not inferior to the holy energy of the Church. However, in terms of the fundamental power, it was far inferior. A strange scene appeared. The golden pillar of light and the blood-red pillar of light collided in the air. The 2 incomparably large amounts of energy represented light and darkness respectively. The collision of the extreme energies immediately caused the ground within dozens of square kilometers to tremble violently. Cracks even appeared on the ground. Using energy to cause earthquakes, one could imagine how terrifying this energy was. The blood-colored energy immediately changed the moment it came into contact with the golden energy. The difference in strength was not something that could be made up for with determination. Although Su Qing and the vampires, who knew that they were doomed, had done their best, the Archcardinal's attack only slowed down for a moment before it gradually came crashing down on them. Everyone knew that when the golden energy entered the side of the vampires, it would be the moment their souls would scatter. Qing Ming Ming cried out in alarm. Her attack on Raphael immediately became like a storm. Countless rainbow-colored feathers were like sharp blades. Under Ming Ming's full strength, the overdrawn thundercloud force immediately became more than twice as strong. Raphael's face revealed a hint of solemnity. "Beautiful lady, why are you doing this?" Rays of golden light floated out from the 6 wings on his back. They were actually also golden feathers. Every feather was condensed from energy. The gold and rainbow colors condensed in the air, and a huge golden shadow shrouded down from the sky. At that time, a golden ring of light shrouded them. It was the Angel of Light, Raphael's restricted combat domain. This was a very special domain that was usually used to capture people. In this domain, all abilities similar to teleportation would lose their effect. At the same time, unless the user of the domain was defeated, the opponent would not be able to leave this domain. Raphael used his own power to restrict Ming Ming, not allowing her to rescue the vampires. Similarly, seeing that Su Qing and the vampires' lives were in danger, Klinsmann also erupted. He no longer cared about preserving his strength. The golden light in the bloody light became unprecedentedly powerful, and the attack on Inzaghi suddenly became violent. Moreover, this time, he even gave up on dodging, and completely collided with Inzaghi's energy. For a moment, surging roars accompanied by an energy storm raged in the air. Not far away, Dracula Castle had already begun to tremble slightly. A trace of disdain appeared in Inzaghi's eyes as he resisted Klinsmann's attack. A silver domain quietly appeared. His domain naturally could not be compared to Raphael's. The range of the domain was not large, only about 10 meters or so. However, this domain was very special. It was a speed domain and a deceleration domain. Originally, it was used on the opponent, but this time, he used it on Klinsmann and himself at the same time. Under such circumstances, he and Klinsmann felt their bodies sink at the same time, and their speed suddenly dropped by a third. Inzaghi was not in a hurry to win. Anyway, the result of today's battle had already been decided. His gaze was enough to keep Klinsmann from saving the vampires. As long as the other vampires were killed, Klinsmann's final outcome would not be changed by any accident. The main purpose of the Vatican's visit this time was not to deal with the Dracula family, but for that person. Therefore, Klinsmann could not die yet. This was also why the red-robed archbishops only sent Inzaghi to deal with him. The bloody light in the air gradually retreated, and the color of the bloody light became darker and darker. However, even after being compressed, the bloody light still could not stop the golden light from advancing. Almost with the naked eye, one could see that at the place where the bloody light beam disappeared, the bloody light that was full of evil aura was melting like ice and snow. Although the light emitted by the golden light beam that was full of divine and holy aura had also weakened a little, it was obvious that its ultimate goal would still be achieved. At this moment, even if the vampires wanted to escape, it was too late. They had released all their energy, and their bodies no longer had the strength to escape. They could not even move. Ming Ming shouted, "Don't!" The bloody light had retreated to the last moment, and the first to bear the brunt was Su Qing, who was standing at the front. There was no fear in Su Qing's eyes. There was only determination in her beautiful eyes that flashed with bloody light. Amidst the mournful cries, he clearly erupted. A mist of blood gushed out of her body, mixed with the remaining energy, and rushed towards Raphael without reservation. Raphael's expression changed drastically. He did not expect Ming Ming to be so persistent. A golden shadow floated out. It was a shadow that was exactly the same as him. With a flash of light, it replaced his body and collided with Ming Ming's attack. Amidst the loud bang, even the golden holy light emitted by the three cardinals was weakened by the violent tremors. The blood-red light emitted by the vampires also disappeared under the violent energy fluctuations. The angel of light Raphael grunted and spat out a mouthful of blood. This was the first time he had been injured in the battle against Ming Ming. At this moment, Ming Ming's body was sent flying, heavily colliding with Raphael's strange domain that restricted combat. With a muffled sound, large amounts of blood constantly swirled out of her mouth. But even though she gave it her all, she still could not break out of this domain. The difference in strength made her final effort useless. Clearly, there was another person who also exploded. The bloody light was scattered by the energy fluctuations of the battle between Ming Ming and Raphael. The golden light also paused in the tremors, and in the next moment, it had already swallowed Su Qing's body. And at this moment, Inzaghi suddenly let out a monstrous roar. A deep bloody wound appeared on the chest of the chief judge, and his domain also disappeared at this moment. A blood-red figure appeared in front of Su Qing without warning, using his tall body to block the final bombardment of the golden holy light. With a loud bang, All the vampires were sent flying by the pure holy light. Having lost most of their energy, they didn't even have the strength to fly. One by one, they fell heavily to the ground. If it were not for the fact that the vampires' bodies were strong enough, the fall from the sky would have most likely killed them. Only 2 vampires had not yet fallen. One was Su Qing, who spread her wings to maintain her balance, and the other was the blood-red figure in front of her. "Brother!" Su Qing's mournful voice did not sound like it came from a human's mouth at all. Her hoarse voice was filled with endless hatred. Yes, at the last moment, Klinsmann used his own body to block the attack of the 3 cardinals. Although the golden holy light had been greatly shaken by the energy waves of Ming Ming and Raphael, it was still an attack launched by the 3 cardinals. However, it was still an attack launched by the 3 red-cloaked archbishops. Klinsmann's face was completely pale, but his body was still blood-red. At this moment, it was impossible to distinguish whether it was the blood-red energy of the Blood Prince or the Blood Prince's own blood. As it turned out, when Klinsmann saw that Su Biao's life was in danger, he completely unleashed his life essence that he had painstakingly cultivated for many years. With his primordial blood, he transformed it into a long sword and heavily bombarded Inzaghi's body. In the face of this sudden and terrifying attack, although Inzaghi resisted with all his strength, he still suffered serious injuries. And at the last moment, Klinsmann also unleashed all his potential. With the last teleportation of his life, he used his body to block in front of Su Qing. Su Qing had also lost most of her energy. She could only barely control her body and fall to the ground. She hugged Klinsmann tightly in her arms. Even in the face of death, she was not afraid, but at this moment her heart was filled with fear. Raphael wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and sighed. "It's over. Everything is over." He shook his head gently, a trace of sadness in his eyes. Klinsmann's last attack was extremely terrifying, and so was Ming Ming's attack. Her strength was much lower than Raphael's, but she was still able to injure him. It was clear that Ming Ming had paid a huge price to do so. The rainbow light in the sky had long since dimmed. The rainbow-colored feathers had lost their original luster. The 8-meter-long giant bird's body was constantly shrinking. Her tearful eyes had already turned a little gray. "There is a beautiful spring. Why did you do this? You showed me the stubbornness of the East, but do you think it's worth it to give up your life for this?" Raphael murmured to himself. He did not even pay attention to the greetings of the 3 red-robed archbishops. The holy light spiritual formation was deactivated because there was no need for it to exist anymore. All the vampires were seriously injured. Vampire Prince Klinsmann was not going to survive. Even the rainbow-colored bird, which should not have appeared, had already fallen to the ground under the attack of the Angel of Light Raphael. Its life force was constantly fading away. Yes, just as Raphael had said, everything should be over, but was it really over? If he did not appear, perhaps it would be. But at this time, he finally returned. The strongest of the guardians of the East, the king of the Zodiac guardian gods, he had returned. A black silhouette descended from the sky like a bolt of lightning. Even Raphael couldn't see how the silhouette flew over. On the back of the black silhouette was a pair of golden wings filled with a terrifying aura, causing Raphael's heart to tremble slightly. His sorrowful gaze became sharp once again. He felt an extremely dangerous aura from the black silhouette with the golden wings. Chiyu flew back. He did not take a plane. He had received news from the Powder Gem that Dracula Castle was under attack. He did not know how long he had been unconscious, so he did not dare to delay at all. If he were to fly back by plane, he did not know how long it would take, and he did not know if there would be a timely flight. By the time he rushed back to train, all the battles would probably be over. Therefore, he chose to fly. After finding passers-by and confirming his location, he immediately bought a map and flew towards London as fast as he could. With the magic of the ever-changing Xuanji realm method, He did not need to worry about being scanned by the radar of various countries during the flight. Germany was not too far away from winning after all. When the golden-winged rock eagle's soaring 90,000 kilometers technique was fully exerted, Chi-Yu experienced its magic for the first time. Soaring 90,000 kilometers was already very fast in a short distance, but the advantage of speed was fully exerted when flying a long distance. As the flight distance increased, the ability of the soaring 90,000 kilometers technique was exerted to the limit. It took Chi-Yu less than 2 hours to fly from Germany to London. During this period of time, Dracula Castle relied on the territory of the castle to resist the attacks of the Vatican, which was why Chi-Yu was able to rush back at this time. As soon as he entered England's territory, he sensed danger from Ming Ming's spiritual connection. Ming Ming's crisis made Chi-Yu unleash his potential to the limit and accelerate once again. However, when he saw the last collision of energy from afar and saw Klinsmann using his body to shield her, he knew that he was one step too late. The fury in his heart had reached an unprecedented limit. At this moment, Chi-Yu was no longer Ink Kirin, but Ink Kirin who was extremely furious. The unprecedented strong murderous intent made his silver eyes glow with a blood-red luster. Chi-Yu had only recovered 30% of his strength when he had first flown back. However, as he flew back, his Qilin cloud power had reached the 7th cloud realm, allowing him to draw energy from the 1,000 opportunities and 100 changes technique. He no longer needed to worry that the 1,000 opportunities and 100 changes technique would consume a large amount of his energy. It could be said that as long as he did not use a special attack from the 1,000 opportunities and 100 changes technique or was directly bombarded by a powerful energy, not only would the 1,000 opportunities and 100 changes technique not consume his energy, it would even increase his energy recovery rate. The other ability was also very practical. When the energy traction ability was activated, Chi-Yu's energy could be automatically transferred in this territory. Under different conditions, the energy transfer could be chosen by the user. In other words, if Chi-Yu was in the forest, he would be able to absorb a large amount of natural energy with the energy traction ability. But if he were on the surface of the sea, the energy traction ability would be water energy molecules. Hence, under the effects of these two abilities, Chi-Yu adjusted his flight direction and flew at full speed. Not only did he not expend too much energy over the past few hours, but he had also completely recovered all the energy in his body. Even his mental strength had received a certain amount of rest during the flight. He was currently at the peak of the 7-cloud state, and it was precisely because of this that the Angel of Light, Raphael, felt an extreme sense of danger the moment he appeared. Chapter 200. No, Chi-Yu roared. With his body as the center, the air within a 10-square-meter radius suddenly distorted. Without holding back, nature energy surged out and turned into countless green spots of light that surged into Ming Ming's body. In fact, Chi-Yu had not returned too late. If he had returned a minute later, perhaps Ming Ming would have really left this world. In the face of Ming Ming's all-out attack, the Angel of Light could not hold back at all. Although his method of attacking with his own light and shadow seemed simple, it was the Angel of Light's origin attack, the divine body of light. Not only was Ming Ming's energy shattered, but all the meridians and organs in her body were also severely damaged. Her thundercloud force was completely dispersed. If not for the fact that Chi-Yu had modified her body with nature energy, she would have turned into a rain of blood on the spot and been purified by the tyrannical divine energy. However, even if her body was preserved, her internal organs were greatly damaged, and her life force was fading away. This put her in an absolute crisis. As the source of nature, Chi-Yu's nature energy was unparalleled in this world. He arrived in time, and without any hesitation, he forcibly transferred his nature energy to Ming Ming. Although this method consumed a lot of his own energy, at the same time, it achieved the best effect. Almost in an instant, The nature energy in Ming Ming's body resonated with the energy that Qi Yu had infused. One must know that she and Qi Yu were spiritually connected. Moreover, the nature energy in her body originated from Qi Yu. Therefore, there was no rejection for Qi Yu's energy input at all. Almost in an instant, the body of Ming Ming, who had been on the verge of death, lit up with a jade-like luster. Under the cover of the jade-like luster, Qi Yu's nature energy. With the help of Kiran's marrow-washing and muscle-tendon-changing art, the damaged meridians and organs in Ming Ming's body had already begun to regenerate. Qi Yu, you're finally back. Save Qing'er. We brought trouble to them. Their target is Sister Yamu. After saying that, Ming Ming could no longer hold on. However, she did not die this time. Instead, he fell into a deep sleep in the warm energy. Even with the enormous energy of the source of nature, it would take several days for him to recover from such a severe injury, and this was not counting the recovery of the thundercloud force. Fortunately, Ming Ming had reached the 6th cloud level, which resulted in a qualitative leap in the Zodiac Guardian God Warrior, which saved her life. Rest assured and go to sleep. Leave the rest to me. As long as I'm not no one can hurt Qing'er. Qi Yu slowly stood up under the protection of his natural energy. Under the protection of his natural energy, Ming Ming's delicate body turned into a green light and merged into the Kiran pearl. In the silver light in Qi Yu's eyes, the blood-red light became stronger. He stood up, took a step, and arrived beside Klinsmann and Su Qing. At this time, Klinsmann was completely covered in blood. Looking at the dim light in his eyes, Qi Yu couldn't help but feel a sharp pain in his heart. Klinsmann also saw him. Although his handsome face was covered in blood, he still smiled. He smiled faintly. You're back. You're finally back. I can rest assured now. Qi Yu squatted down and knelt on one knee in front of Klinsmann. Tears welled up in his eyes. I'm sorry, Klinsmann, my good brother. I brought this disaster to you. It's all because of me. Don't worry, even if I have to do my best, I will definitely save you. Klinsmann shook his head gently. No, Qi, I understand your heart. That's enough. No one knows my body better than me. I'm different from you Easterners. Although your magical natural energy is very good, it has no effect on me. After all, I belong to the darkness. Unless the satanic demon God himself comes, no one can save my life. Have you ever seen a vampire survive after losing so much blood? No, brother, I don't want you to die. Big brother. Su Qing was sobbing uncontrollably as she looked at Klinsmann, her body trembling violently. Klinsmann's gaze turned to the people of the Vatican. Everything is over, isn't it? Respected lords of the Vatican, can you allow me to say a few words to my beloved sister at my last moment? Even if I belong to the dark world, I still hope to have this power. Paulo Gasol sighed and said, Why bother? Your Highness Klinsmann, you bravely protected your family. On behalf of myself, I express my sincere respect to you. Please, before your soul is purified by the heavens, we will not disturb you. Qi Yu's body trembled. Just as he was about to stand up, his hand was grabbed by Klinsmann. Klinsmann shook his head at him meaningfully. Can you let me have a moment of peace before the end of my life? Qi, your breath is very unstable. You need to rest. Although his voice had started to become weak, and the dark energy was slowly leaving his body as his blood flowed out, Klinsmann was very clear-headed at this moment. The bloody light in Qi Yu's silver eyes flickered. Of course, he understood what Klinsmann meant. The battle was not over yet. Even if Klinsmann died, it would not end. Since the real target of these Vatican powerhouses was Yamu, they would not leave so easily. And right now, he was the only one who still had the ability to fight. Taking a deep breath, Qi Yu forcibly dispelled the intense resentment in his heart. He activated the thundercloud force in his body. Flying for a long time had somewhat affected his body. In this silk-like silence, he began to barely recover his energy. Klinsmann turned his gaze to Su Qing. His gradually dimming eyes revealed a trace of satisfaction. Hey, Christy, don't cry. In my heart, you will always be the most beautiful vampire. You are the princess of the Dracula family. Don't cry. I will not be able to accompany you from now on. You must learn to be strong, okay? How could Su Qing not cry? Her tears were like a kite with a broken string, merging with Klinsmann's blood. Her heart was so sad that it almost stopped beating. Don't cry, brother. I won't cry. Brother, let Chi-Yu try. He is so powerful. He will definitely bring you back. Klinsmann shook his head gently. Actually, he knew. If Chi-Yu really went all out, he still had a 20% chance of surviving. However, if that was really the case, it would definitely consume a large amount of Chi-Yu's energy. In the end, not a single person would be able to successfully leave this place. The remaining members of the blood clan of the Dracula family would also be completely annihilated in this operation by the church. That was not what he wanted to see. As the head of the Dracula family, as a fierce and ambitious person, the moment Chi-Yu appeared, he had already made up his mind. Christy, listen to me. After I die, you must listen to Chi. I can see that deep in your heart you still have a good impression of him. I also believe that he is a person worth trusting, Chi. Can you promise me? From now on, protect Christy's safety forever. Don't let any harm come to her. Looking at Klinsmann's bloodshot eyes that were full of hope, Chi-Yu nodded firmly without hesitation. Klinsmann, I will definitely repay what I owe you. Moreover, Chinger is my friend. Klinsmann smiled. Chinger, the Dracula family is finished. I've worked hard my whole life, but I couldn't bring them to the true dark stage. Although I'm not willing to accept it, I'm very satisfied now. Do you know? You have fulfilled the regret that I have been immersed in for thousands of years. Back then, when Christy died, how I wished I could be by her side. Even if I gave up everything, I still hope to be able to exchange for her life. But I can't do it. She is already gone, forever in the arms of Satan. For thousands of years, although I have always been the head of the Dracula family, I have never been happy until you appeared. You have the same trace of willfulness as Christy. You are as beautiful as her. Even the aura that you exude is exactly the same as hers. When I first saw you, I knew that this was a chance that God gave me, a chance to make up for my regret. So, I did not hesitate to use the red gold origin blood to turn you into a vampire like me. Chinger, do you hate me? Do you hate me for turning you into Christy? No, big brother, I do not regret it. Even without the power of a vampire, I have a brother like you. I do not regret becoming a vampire. Su Qing shook her head vigorously. Tears flew everywhere as she shook her head. They fell on the ground beside her, and also on Chi-Yu and Klinsmann. Klinsmann looked at Su Qing gently. Thank you, Chinger. Today I've finally fulfilled my wish. Although I still have a lot of unwillingness in the depths of my heart, I've finally saved you at the last moment. Even though I've sacrificed my life, I have no regret. I'm very satisfied. Don't be sad because of my death. Compared to ordinary people, I have lived for thousands of years. Perhaps I should have left this world long ago. Chinger, go back. Go back with Chi-Yu to the place that belongs to you Easterners. There, with Chi's protection, no one can hurt you. My dream is over. Go back to your own life. You are still a young girl. You still have a long way to go. At this time, Su Qing was sobbing so much that she could not speak. Looking at Klinsmann, no one noticed that Chi-Yu's silver eyes had turned completely blood-red. A dangerous aura was completely contained, but it gradually exploded in the depths of his heart. It was an energy wave full of murderous and demonic aura. At this time, his body had begun to tremble slightly. Chi-Yu did not say anything. He only slowly raised his head and looked into Klinsmann's eyes with his completely blood-red eyes. Klinsmann's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. Chi-Yu, a shrill roar came out of Chi-Yu's mouth. He knelt on one knee and raised his head. The long silver hair on his head was instantly dyed blood red. Incomparably surging energy instantly surged into the sky. His originally tall body began to expand rapidly. A strong fighting spirit mixed with violent murderous aura and monstrous resentment. His body was changing. The angel of light Raphael's pupils instantly shrank. Demonization. This human has actually demonized. Slowly turning around, Chi Yu's blood-red eyes swept across the people of the Vatican in front of him. Every expert of the Vatican could not help but take a step back when his blood-red eyes swept across them. They had never seen such intense resentment and murderous aura before. At this time, Chi Yu was like an active volcano that showed signs of erupting at any time. Murderous aura. Real murderous aura spread from Chi Yu's body. Xuanyuan's soul and Xieji's voice sounded almost at the same time in Chi Yu's heart. Stop, you will destroy yourself like this. Chi Yu turned a deaf ear to them. At this time, no one could stop the murderous aura in his heart. As the soul of the Xianyuan sword, Xuanyuan's soul was indeed very powerful. However, after all, Chi Yu was the director of the Xianyuan sword. He could disobey Chi Yu's orders, but he did not have the ability to stop Chi Yu. Demonization had raised Chi Yu's aura to its peak. With the help of the huge murderous aura, his body had rapidly expanded. Without going through the Kirin's true form mutation, he had directly expanded to a height of about 3 meters. His bulging muscles completely tore apart the clothes on his upper body. Immediately after, lines of magic patterns began to appear on his skin. The black patterns shone with a metallic luster. The patterns were very thin but could be seen clearly. The silver eyes of the Kirin tattoo on his chest had also turned blood-red. Yes, the 4 auspicious clouds ink Kirin had turned into the unprecedented blood Kirin due to extreme sorrow and resentment. He slowly raised his hand and a golden light suddenly lit up. Under Chi Yu's control, the Xianyuan sword appeared in his hand. However, at this time, the Xianyuan sword had changed. The sword was constantly buzzing and trembling, as if it was trying to break free from Chi Yu's hand. The Xianyuan sword was the sword of the brave and the sword of the benevolent. At this time, the strong murderous aura emanating from Chi Yu's body had caused it to violently reject him. Chi Yu glanced at the Xianyuan sword, whose golden light was constantly weakening. He snorted angrily and kept it back into his body. His arm shook again, and a long sword that looked exactly like the Xianyuan sword appeared in his hand. However, this time, the sword was blood-red. Kirin's octatic treasures was not like the Xianyuan sword, which was a divine weapon. It had its own energy aura, and after it recognized its master, it would change according to its master's aura. Under the effect of the murderous aura, Chi Yu had turned into a blood Kirin. In that case, the Kirin illusion had also turned into a blood Kirin in the hands of the blood Kirin. The tyrannical sword light flickered continuously in the air. Every time it fluctuated, it would bring about an extremely terrifying murderous aura. The sky, which had originally been lit up by the sunlight, had now returned to darkness. A thick black fog appeared in the air, blocking the sunlight. His entire body was emitting a blood-red light. At this time, Chi Yu was completely like a demon, a real demon. In fact, with Chi Yu's mental strength, this situation should not have happened. Even in the midst of extreme sorrow, he would not produce such extreme resentment. However, he was no longer the original Chi Yu. In his heart, there was now something that even he himself did not know. Kirin slowly raised the blood sword and pointed it at the people of the Vatican. Chi Yu's voice also seemed to be filled with magic. It's you. It's you who killed my beloved wife. It's you. You must all die. Only with your blood can I dispel the hatred in my heart. Go to hell. He held the sword with both hands. Chi Yu's body instantly rushed up. In an instant, a dark red light illuminated the earth. In just a moment, he had actually used the 1000 transformation Jade Pearl Realm technique to envelop all the experts of the Vatican. In the next moment, His body had already appeared next to the angel of light, Raphael. Boom! The two majestic bodies collided in the air. The golden sword in Raphael's hand forcibly blocked Chi Yu's Kirin blood sword. The tyrannical energy waves caused everything in the surroundings to tremble. However, in the next moment, Chi Yu's body had already disappeared. Raphael spat out a mouthful of blood. The holy light on his body actually weakened a lot at this moment. He had already been injured by Ming Ming's final attack, and now he was attacked by Chi Yu's sword with all his strength. Although it was not as sharp as the Xianyuan sword, Chi Yu's energy had increased to a terrifying level after turning into blood Kirin. It was definitely not something that the Seven Clouds Kirin should have. The two swords clashed. The first thing Raphael felt was an incomparably huge murderous aura. It was a murderous aura that even he could not withstand. Then came the monstrous resentment. Even with his ability as the Angel of Light, he could not completely dispel the murderous aura and resentment under such an attack. He was immediately injured even more. When Kirin's blood sword appeared again, it was already in the midst of the experts of the Vatican. The 7 experts of the Church were instantly cut into 14 pieces, completely sliced apart by the blood-red light of the Chilan's blood sword. The 3 archbishops in red roared angrily at the same time. An intense holy light ignited. The 3 of them combined into one, and only then did they manage to force Chi Yu back. However, even in the process of being forced back, his Kirin blood sword had already taken 3 lives. Within the infinite changes of the 4 stars domain, Chi Yu was the absolute master. Even though he had lost his consciousness, he had not lost his fighting ability. Moreover, under such circumstances, his bloodthirsty heart had raised his fighting spirit to the limit. Chi Yu's body disappeared again. When he reappeared, he was already behind Chi Yu. Raphael did not even have time to react. He could only attack hastily and clash head-on with Chi Yu again. With a loud bang, Chi Yu's body turned into a mist of blood and disappeared. At this moment, the infinite changes of the 4 stars domain was fully activated. All the experts of the Vatican were separated at the same time. They were horrified to find that their companion was suddenly getting further and further away from them. No matter how hard they tried, they could not get close to him. Raphael's face had already become abnormally pale. His body even began to tremble slightly. Even the golden light sword in his hand began to flicker with an unstable light. Fear, this archangel from the celestial realm actually felt fear in his heart. The blood-red figure began to flicker among the scattered people. Every time it flickered, it would take away a life. His attacks were extremely overbearing and tyrannical. All of his attacks were head-on slashes, and the result of every attack was an expert of the Vatican's body being split into 2. Not a single person could withstand his attacks. With Kirin's blood sword and the Azura Blade's attack method, how could the ordinary people of the Vatican be a match for Blood Kirin? Even though he had lost his consciousness, Chi Yu's attacks were very clever. He did not attack the few red-robed archbishops or Inzaghi. Instead, he chose to attack the ordinary experts of the Vatican. In the short span of a minute after the infinite changes of the 4 stars domain was activated, only 5 of the 20 experts of the Vatican were left. The blood-red figure continued to flicker in this dark red world. While a massacre was taking place in the infinite changes of the 4 stars domain, changes were also taking place outside the domain. Although the vampires of the Dracula family were lucky enough to survive, they had all lost the ability to fight and were lying on the ground, moaning in pain. Klinsmann, whose life force was about to disappear, now looked a little ruddy. If Su Qing was still conscious, she would definitely know that Klinsmann was in a state of terminal lucidity. Qing-er, I'll call you Qing-er. After all, you are not the real Kirin. I'm going to leave, but before I leave, I have something to give you. Chi Yu is indeed powerful, but I still hope that you can protect yourself. This is the last thing I can give you. Do you still remember the bottle of primordial blood that Chi Yu gave me? That is the blood of the ancestor of the Dracula family, Cain Dracula. It contains the purest bloodline. Originally, I wanted to give it to you after you reach the Grand Duke realm. I also wanted to drink some myself and try to reach the Blood Emperor level in a few years, but I don't have the time anymore. Now it belongs to you. I don't need you to do anything, just live well. If you have time in the future, I hope that you can come back to London to pay your respects to me. At this point, Klinsmann's dim eyes suddenly lit up. Before Su Qing could react, he suddenly sat up, opened his arms, and pulled Su Qing into his embrace. The sudden change shocked Su Qing, who was immersed in her sorrow, but why would she struggle when Klinsmann hugged her at the end? Just as she was feeling the ice-cold body of this outsider elder brother, a sudden change occurred. Klinsmann's body suddenly exploded, turning into a mist of blood that enveloped Su Qing. His voice, which had become intermittent, became clear again. Klinsmann said solemnly, "Qing, listen carefully. Now I will transfer all my energy to you. You are my last hope. In my whole life, I have always wanted to become a super strong person, to prove that the Blood Clan is not inferior to the Dark Lich, but I have never succeeded. And you are my last hope. Accept my bloodline energy and the primordial blood of Cain's ancestor. You will definitely become the unprecedented Blood Emperor. Use your power to protect yourself. My dear sister, the glory of the Dracula family will be displayed again in you." Klinsmann's voice disappeared along with his life. A blood-red light exploded, and Su Qing found that she could no longer move. Klinsmann, who had turned into a blood-red light, was like a mist that enveloped her body. Then, her clothes disappeared, and the blood-red mist continuously entered her body through her pores. Waves of tyrannical energy came from her skin. Because she had been embraced by Klinsmann's primordial blood, she did not reject Klinsmann's energy at all. Tears were still flowing, but this time they had turned blood-red. Klinsmann had given everything of himself to Su Qing, including his life and all his energy. The blood-red energy was absorbed very quickly, and in the blink of an eye, Klinsmann had disappeared. However, in a sense, he was not dead. His life had completely merged with Su Qing's, and his aura had completely become a part of Su Qing's body. When all the blood-red light disappeared, a porcelain bottle floated in front of Su Qing and slowly fell into her hand. The tears had disappeared, and Su Qing's eyes had turned a special purple color. Her gaze was very calm, even a little scary. She opened the porcelain bottle in her hand and poured all the blood in it into her mouth. Then, she slowly closed her eyes. At this moment, she was not just sad. More importantly, she could not let Klinsmann's last hope be dashed. At the same time, deep in her heart, she made a decision that would never change. Silence. There was a short silence. Su Qing's body seemed to have stopped moving. The next moment, the purple-gold mist gushed out and instantly enveloped her alluring body.